Alrighty. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, for session 5 of the Sweaty Cast. If y'all are tuning in for the very first time, welcome. I am one half of the Sweaty Cast, your boy NeoGameSpark, and flanking to my left, right, depending on what angle or what universe of the multiverse y'all are in right now, we have got the other part of the Sweaty Cast. My boy, Shut Up Gabe, coming at y'all from the very rainy Arizona. Gabe, you want to tell everybody about the trials and tribulations that you had to go through to get through tonight's show, man? It's kind of crazy now I think about it.
Yeah, people are mad dumb in Arizona when it comes to rain. Like, we treat that shit like some like Mayan god just blessed us.
You know, it kind of reminds me of basically every single time it snows down south. And I understand before y'all people down in Georgia or Texas say, hey, we're not used to getting snow. Y'all come down here when it's like 105 degrees on the daily. But yeah, man, shit just definitely goes left. So that's why today's show had to be delayed an hour or so. But we back for all the naysayers out there who said we wouldn't last 1 week. We're now, look at us, we're at 2. So we've got a good tally going on, Gabe.
Was there naysayers?
There was that one guy from last week saying, y'all ain't gonna be here.
There was that one guy.
Yep, that's all it takes. All it takes is just one person to say you can't, and look at us. We just proven them wrong. So
they're wrongdoers. That's what they are.
Yes, that's it, man. That's it. And we proved them wrong because here we are with tonight's episode of the Sweaty Cast, ladies and gentlemen. So as far as the structure and the format of the show is concerned, we're actually doing a little bit of experimentation. We have a couple of topics to talk about tonight. Nothing too crazy has been going on in the video game / movie industry. It's been a pretty soft week, so a lot of the topics that we're talking about today, yeah, very dry week. usually after E3 season is when the news tends to dry up, and it kind of sucks because there's nary a game to play during the summer season as well. Even though there goes Gabe's cat in the background. That's about the most exciting piece of news we got for 2 weeks in a row. Gabe's cat is just running the show.
Dude, I don't know what is up with this cat. Like literally the entire time I'm here, he doesn't do anything. But like the moment we go live, he's just like it's just free bird. He's just on it.
He's running it, man. I respect it, bro. It's his time to shine. Straight up.
He's running it.
Straight up. Yeah, so as far as the topics are concerned, it's going to be a pretty light week, which means we have a hell of a lot more time to dedicate to our discussion of Obi Wan KENOBI. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Obi Wan KENOBI wrapped up earlier this week, and we've got a lot of stuff to say, so more on that later. We're going to go ahead and get into the first rapid-fire topic that we got for this week. It's nothing too crazy, like I said. It's something that's very light, and it's more speculation, so we're not going to spend too much time on it, but we do like to keep you guys informed. So the first rapid-fire topic we have here has to do with our friends over at SuckerPunch. SuckerPunch, as you guys know, developers behind such great games like Sly Cooper. Most recently, they put out Ghost of Tsushima. On their job listings, because, you know, they are hiring for their next title. Their job listings, you know, that gives us a good idea of what they're going to be working on. Like, for example, Insomniac, they were hiring a lot of people who have experience in online multiplayer, which means that one of the titles in their pipeline is probably going to have something to do with online play. For Sucker Punch, nothing to that degree, but we did hear from, if you do your perusing and digging from their technical combat, senior combat, career pages, we found that in this situation, they're hiring someone who has experience and expertise with parry timing and count frames, which, I mean, if you put two and two together, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's something to do with Ghost of Tsushima. And on one of the encounter design pages, it says delivering interesting and varied encounters in an open world with a particular focus on melee combat and stealth. Gabe, what could you think this game is, man? Melee combat, stealth, open world? Are we looking at the next Sly Cooper game?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Could be. I mean, it's looking like it might be a drastic departure from previous installments, but it's looking like we got Sly Cooper, baby. That's what it is, man.
Sly Cooper's back. You heard it here. It was first broken the news here. We cracked the case here on the Sweaty Cast. We announced it here. All other news reports are wrong.
PlayStation insiders, they wish.
Yeah,
man.
dude.
They could never.
Dude, we insiders. Jim Ryan tells me everything.
Hell yeah. But yeah, in all seriousness though, I mean, this just looks like Sucker Punch is ramping up for the next project. And I mean, it makes sense. Ghost of Tsushima came out in 2020, and we haven't really heard anything much since they put out the director's cut, and of course they're still supporting they're still supporting Ghost of Tsushima Legends. So yeah, it looks like they're working on a sequel. To what degree, I'm not sure, because we've played Ghost of Tsushima. It's kind of like one of those games where, I don't know, you play Ghost of Tsushima, right? You finished it?
Yeah.
Like, in my personal opinion, the way Ghost of Tsushima ended, it kind of had like this little perfect bow on it, where I really don't know where else they could take this story, because it was a very, very personal story for Jin, that it kind of, I mean, unless they just come up with a new adversary in that timeline, I don't know how they would naturally progress it. One of my friends and I, we were discussing how maybe it's not necessarily a story about Jin Sakai, maybe it's the story about the ghost and as it transcends generations. So we could be playing as somebody like from a like similar to Assassin's Creed, where, you know, you have Ezio and you have all the other protagonists there, and they're all different, but it's still similar gameplay styles. It's just at different points in time. So I mean, it already got a lot of Assassin's Creed comparisons, so it could go down that route. But either way, I'm excited. Whenever they do choose to unveil this game, it's probably not going to be for a while, given how game development is concerned. But yeah, that's that. And moving into the next rapid fire topic, staying within the world of Sony. Well, these people are formerly of the world of Sony. Gabe, do you remember a video game by the name of Days Gone?
No.
You
never heard of it.
Never heard of Days Gone? You know, it's let me help you out here. It was a zombie game that
There's a
came
lot of
out.
those.
Oh, dang. All right. It was a zombie game starring a white guy.
A lot of those.
It was a zombie game starring a white guy that came out on the PS4. There you go.
A lot of those. What's next? You're gonna tell me it's open world as well?
Oh, damn it, bro. Jesus. Well, we have got an update. For those who are unaware, there was kind of like this weird exodus from PlayStation over the past, I want to say 2 years or so, where we learned a lot of behind the scenes drama coming from the Days Gone team. Two prominent people from there, Jeff Ross and John Garvin, left on pretty bad terms. There was the whole hubble about Days Gone 2 not being greenlit, and there was the whole question on whether or not, Sony is to blame for this or all the other nonsense. We're not here to talk about that. But John Garvin and also somebody else from this Sony exodus, Michael Mumbauer, they have teamed up to form a brand new AAA studio, and they announced, and I'm gonna need some help with this one because I have no idea what this is about. They have announced this new studio titled Lithos, and their debut game, Ashfall, which the studio describes as the first true Web 3.0 AAA title for PC, console, the Hedera network, and it will be featuring NFT blockchain technology.
Whatever that means.
I'm so confused by this. Like
whatever that means.
Honestly, I try to keep myself informed for the most part of things that I care about in the industry, and also things that I'm not really too well versed in or care about. But this just confuses me. It's like they had us in the first half. They said you got PlayStation alumni, right? PlayStation alumni working a brand new studio, which is always good to see in the industry. AAA game. It will evolve from a single player to a PvP/PvE experience, and it's somehow gonna feature blockchain technology. I don't know how I should feel about this.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Like, that's great. Like, I understand NFTs. I understand blockchains. I understand all that shit. But what the fuck does that mean? What does it mean in a game? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I might be dented in the brain or something. I don't know. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't know. But they're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, like what kind of game is it? Like, are we playing slots but like third person with NFTs? Like, what is this?
So I've got their press release pulled up right here, and they're speaking a little bit about it. But it's not just the blockchain technology. What they're trying to do with this Ashfall game is basically turn it into a cinematic transmedia world. Oh boy.
I still don't know. I mean, I get what they're saying, but I still don't know. I still don't know what that means. It's like, as for a gamer, like, I don't understand what that means. I'm sorry. Like,
so what? Because I've heard this phrase thrown around a lot, especially with the Bungie Sony acquisition. One thing that they're trying to do with video games is they're trying to create with this thing called transmedia, which is essentially go beyond the realm of just video game engagement, because they already have the gamers, but they're trying to figure out how can they expand this beyond the gamers. Well, they do something called transmedia, which transmedia is essentially just a fancy way of saying we want to make movies and we want to make TV shows and we want to do all this other stuff and basically create our own universe. And that's how they announced their company. It's AAA gaming focused and also an entertainment studio. So it seems like whatever this game materializes into with all the blockchain technology, they want to take it beyond just that. And it says here from John Garvin, our goal is to create a truly next-gen open world experience that engages with new technologies to allow user-generated content. As always, our focus is on creating beloved characters, captivating stories, and evolutionary gameplay.
PR talk. The generic PR talk. Nice.
And a world worth exploring, not just in games, but other media as well. Oh, boy.
I still don't know what that means as a gamer. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. Like maybe I'm just a boomer now, but I just don't understand it.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
It just hurts my brain.
We've heard a lot about this stuff. Most famously, Square Enix, they sold off their entire Western division to invest in NFT blockchain technology. There was reports of other companies who were looking into doing NFTs. And I really want it to be one of those situations where, like you said, Gabe, I'm just too stupid to understand this and understand how crazy this will be and how it'll really
Yeah,
transform.
like I get what it is. Like I get what they're doing, but like in a video game, like how does this make any sense at all? Like is this just like microtransaction the game? Like I don't know.
From my understanding, I remember there was that one person who came out here and they said, basically he was kind of shitting on people who didn't understand it. He essentially said,
Let me
imagine
get
if you
that shit
had,
off my chest.
yeah, right. Imagine if you had a game. I think he said, what was it, like a game like Fortnite, and you had a game like Super Mario Brothers, and you could take the stuff that you bought in Super Mario
Oh
Brothers and bring it
yeah,
into Fortnite because
I
you
heard about
own
that.
that thing. And then I'm just like, logistically, that is a nightmare, and it doesn't make sense because those are two
Yeah,
different entities and two different engines and two different everything. And it just, to me, like everything as far as NFTs are concerned, it just
watching too much
sounds
Ready Player One.
exactly. It just sounds like all this big picture stuff. Basically, like people who do this with their hands. They're like, yeah, yeah, this is gonna be crazy and it's gonna revolutionize. And I don't know,
Some
man.
dude, someone said some game devs want to bring back NFT so bad, just bring back Skylanders. That's what I'm saying, bro.
Honestly,
Skylanders and Disney Infinity. The Disney Infinity ended when it got good. Like,
dude, that's that. Like, if you want to talk about mixing, and especially now that you talk about the metaverse and everything, and mixing real world and video games, that is the one thing that I think most gamers, at least now, they become accustomed to, like Amiibo, Skylander, stuff like that. Now, granted, there is a bit of like, how do I say this? There's only so far you can stretch that type of a concept, like,
well,
because
yeah,
essentially it becomes like a Pokemon game where you got to catch them all and you got to collect them. And how would some games like Skyrim utilize that? How would some games like Uncharted utilize that? Either
they
way,
don't.
either way, I have no idea
They
what's
don't.
going on in this situation. But it's gonna be interesting. The next couple of years of gaming, we've heard a lot of talk about what the future is going to be, and what it could do. And I want to see it. I want to become a believer in whatever it is that this is. But it just sounds like too much
Gotta
snake oil,
screenshot
bro.
them all.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
it really does, dude. I just don't. I just don't see it. Like, uh, what's the like? My brain's just breaking thinking about this. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not something I think we would see in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's something that could be done, but I don't think the tech or like what the vision, the dream is would be something we would see in our lifetime. It just sounds so ridiculous right now.
Yeah. So best of luck to everyone who's trying to get this off the ground. It's kind of funny how in the span of 6 months we've had all these people who have announced these NFT initiatives, and then we've just really seen nothing from that. And I've seen a lot of people backtrack on it. So whether or not this
It,
is viable in a year,
dude, I don't honestly. It's stupid. It's so stupid. It's gonna make me take a bite of the best pizza you ever seen.
what if they start using NFTs? What do you guys think about that?
You ever eat Little Caesars?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
You ever eat Little Caesars and it's sponsored by blockchain technology?
It's sponsored by the Sweaty Cast. Go sweat it out and get a slice of the five.
There you go, guys. Use our discount code down below in the video description. There you go. Stay sweaty, y'all. All right. Now, moving into the next.
After some brain damage.
Exactly. There you go.
My brain still hurts. Like I'm still sitting here trying to wrap around the whole like what they're saying, and it's just honestly, it sounds like one of those Kickstarter scams that on a lot of use code sweaty that
Yep.
a lot of developers use on like MMOs or like really big picture idea games that like I don't know if you heard about like Earth 2 or like there was another one I can't even fucking remember. But there's been a lot of them. That game where the game time was you aged and then like when your character died you had to buy another character
Oh, good
and it
God.
was supposed to be like a living world and it was like this living breathing world with like really intricate like RPG designs and farming and just like a whole like a player sustained economy. Like on paper and what they were saying, it looked really, really, really good, but it ended up just being a giant investment scam from players and other companies. That's what it comes off to me. Like I'm sitting here trying to think of like how to describe how I'm feeling, and that's essentially what I'm feeling hearing their whole company and their idea. It just sounds like a giant like scam. It just sounds like a giant investing scam.
I don't know, man. I just feel like you don't have enough brain cells to comprehend what they're trying to do with this technology, my friend. Like they're gonna revolutionize the world, but before they're able to revolutionize the world, Gabe, we got to talk about demaking the world. We got to talk about bringing it back to when gaming was just a handful of pixels on the screen. Did you ever grow up playing Super Mario Brothers?
Absolutely. On the Game Boy Color, brother.
Yeah. In Super Mario Brothers has been you can call it fortunate or unfortunate enough to have been put into live action once. But they're putting it back on the silver screen with
What do you mean unfortunate? That was the best one. What are you talking about? That movie had reused set pieces from Blade Runner. It was the best movie ever.
There we go. That's what I'm trying to see. Freaking Old Stool Kingdom 2049. But yeah, so Mario is coming back to the silver screen from, for whatever reason, from the people over at Illumination. Bro, out of all the studios that Nintendo could have paired up with, like they could have gotten Pixar, they could have gotten freaking anybody. They went for
DreamWorks definitely needs fucking work right now.
Straight up.
Pixar, dude. Like out of all the big animation companies, dude, Illumination.
Out of all of them, I mean, when you look at the most successful ones, I mean, like if you're comparing things to Pixar and DreamWorks, Illumination is right there. You know, with the Minions and Despicable Me and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, Warner Brothers, dude, they could have done a thing with Warner Brothers. I mean, dude, it's I would say Sony Pictures, but I don't know how good their track record has been with animated movies outside of Into the Spider-Verse.
Well, they had the Emoji Movie. There you go.
I watched that movie fucked up.
Yo, so you didn't like Patrick Stewart voicing a poop emoji? Is that what you're telling me, Gabe?
I didn't understand that movie not sober, and I rewatched it again, and I didn't understand that movie sober.
Damn, like, you watched it twice? You watched it twice? Jesus, bro.
You ever get just so lost in the sauce you just don't understand what you're watching or trying to comprehend? You can't comprehend it at all. It's just like white noise. It's the fuzzy channel it's the channel 4 fuzz. Like you just don't comprehend it, so you have to watch it again. So I watched it again, like totally coherent, and I still didn't understand what that movie was. I didn't understand the plot of it. I didn't understand nothing of it. It just seemed like it was haha, funny poo poo pee poo emoji, haha, iconic voice acting.
That's unfortunately that sounds like a lot of Hollywood animated movies, but this one right here might be the one that dispels those myths, because as most people know, there is going to be a Super Mario Bros. Movie coming from Illumination, and Chris Pratt is going to be voicing Mario himself. Now, this movie was supposed to come out at the end of the year, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. They recently delayed it to spring 2023, and, you know, we haven't got anything in the ways of a trailer. We haven't got any of that stuff. All we've heard is just the cast, and you know, there's been some backlash given the fact that none of the original actors for the characters are going to be voicing them in this one. It's very much so a Hollywood stacked cast. You got a couple good ones there, like Jack Black. But for the most part, it's just
Black. Couple good ones is the only way.
You got Jack Black. I mean, you got like Anya Taylor-Joy, but I don't know.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, but like most people don't look at these actors as like, oh, great voice actors. It's just we want to put butts in seats, just like Kevin Hart. Like Kevin Hart isn't a voice actor. They just want Kevin Hart because he can do Kevin Hart voices.
He's a funny man with the funny voice.
Exactly. But Chris Pratt, he has had voice work before in the past, worked on the Lego movies, and now he's voicing Mario and also Garfield, funny enough, which is
that too.
Yeah. But you know, a lot of people, this was a point of contention, considering, you know, you're going to have an iconic voice, Mario, who's never really had that much dialogue throughout his, you know, 30+ year history. And they kept saying like this voice is going to be so different. This voice is going to sound so different than the original, which comes off as a stereotype. But what does that really mean? They say a lot of stuff, like with the NFT stuff. They say a lot of stuff.
This is what this whole podcast episode is. It's us announcing this news and going, "What does that mean?"
Yo, for real. Like, what does it mean? They say this voice is going to sound so different. We're not going to give you a sneak peek of what it is, but we're excited. And now we got Chris Pratt coming out and basically saying the same thing over and over. Like, I want y'all to understand how weird this statement sounds, okay? I worked really closely with the directors in trying out a few things and landed on something that I'm really proud of and can't wait for people to see and hear. It's an animated voiceover narrative. It's not a live action movie. I'm not going to be wearing a plumber suit running all over. I'm providing a voice for an anime character and it is updated and unlike anything you've heard in the Mario world before. Bro, what does that mean? Like, that's like when you're trying to hit the word count on an essay. It's like, yes, I instead of saying like I'm a voice actor in cartoons, I am a vocal performer in animated voiceovers with a narrative. Like,
dude, he had Jared Leto writing that fucking quote out for him.
Yo, straight up, bro, it's an animated voiceover narrative. Like, bro, we kind of figured that. But yeah, unlike anything you heard in the Mario world before, I swear to God, bro, if it's just,
I don't know what that means.
If it's just Chris Pratt sounding like Chris Pratt,
I'm guaranteeing that's what's gonna be. This is how the movie's gonna start out. All right, he's gonna start in like Italian accent, and then he's gonna cough, and then he's gonna be like, and then he's gonna sound like Chris Pratt, and he's gonna be like, "Well, that was weird."
Oh God, I can actually see that happening, or I could see him the reverse of that happening, where he's coughing and then he's like, "It's me." Well, that sounds strange. Like, I can totally put money on that. So yeah, I mean, this movie still doesn't have a title. It's directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelinek. It comes out next April. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy, Jack Black, Keegan-Michael Key, Seth Rogen, Kevin Michael Richardson, Fred Armisen, Sebastian Maniscalco. Sorry if I butchered that. And the original Mario voice actor Charles Martinet is going to be having some form of a cameo, whatever that means.
Yeah,
you know.
Random character. He's gonna play a Lakitu for a second.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, I don't have too much stock in this Mario movie because I don't particularly like a lot of Illumination's output. And if it's soulless and it just comes off as, I mean, all these movies are advertisements for toys at the end of the day. But every now and then you get something cool like the Lego movie. The first Lego movie was really good. And of course, like, you know, Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse, that's made to sell toys and comics, but that's great as well. But yeah, we'll have to see. But
the rumor on the delay was to line up with the Hollywood launch date for the Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Hollywood. That's the rumor on why the movie got delayed, because they want to line the two up together.
I could believe that. Yeah, and I think there was something else some people were saying. They probably went with Illumination because Illumination, I believe, is owned by Universal.
They are,
so
yeah.
That's just like,
when I went, trust me. It was. I have a picture of the minion. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yo, there you go. Like, when he went there, he saw the truth, hounded by the minions. That's what I like to call Hollywood accounting at its finest. Because if this Mario movie ever bombed, shh, don't worry, we have the theme park. It'll be good.
Exactly. Literally, yeah, dude. I mean, they still do the Waterworld show there. Like,
it's crazy. But you want to know something else that is even crazier than Chris Pratt and his Mario voice? This is something that's really weird to me, Gabe, and I think you're gonna be like, "What the hell?" Were you a fan? Were you a fan of Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic?
No.
No? Damn. All right, then. Well, that's something you need to do now going forward. But yeah, the Star Wars saga, it continued with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, right? And it recently came out on the Nintendo Switch, which is fantastic because the more people that play the KOTOR duology, the better.
I know what you're talking about.
Or maybe not, because apparently this game shipped with a game-breaking bug that players cannot finish the game.
It's
which I don't understand, because this game is like, what, almost 20 years old?
Yeah.
The rumor is it's something to do with the uncut content. I don't know if that's like true or not, but the rumor is because a lot of that uncut content, I don't know how much of it was actually finished or refined. I know that when they were Obsidian was originally making Knights of the Old Republic 2, they kind of bit off more than they could chew, mainly because the release date that Lucas wanted it. I think they wanted it to be out around Revenge of the Sith. I think that's what the aim for it was. So they cut a lot of that content out, and then it's all coming back into the game. But like, I don't know how much of that is like developed, and I don't know how much of that is just a buggy mess. But knowing that it's launching with a game you can't finish is kind of sad.
So a little bit of an update for those wondering where it is. Basically, Aspire, who's the developer, Aspire's been porting all of these Star Wars games recently. But they received a note from a lot of players who were reporting a game crash occurring after the Basilisk crash cutscene when landing on Onderon. And I this is just absolutely insane to me because, like, bro, because we hear about, like, for example, we talked about Bethesda last week. You hear about, like, game-breaking bugs. You hear about all these things plaguing, like, Bethesda games and blah, blah, blah. But they're never to the degree where the vast majority of people can't complete the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, there will be people, there will be a percentage, but it's always low. But for people to come out there and say, dog, I can't finish the game, that's just wild to me, bro.
On a how many year old game? Almost 20-year-old game?
Yeah, it came out in 2004. 2004. Yeah. It came out 1 year after KOTOR, now that I think about it. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was definitely rushed out to meet the Revenge of the Sith release date.
Yeah. So basically all we know as of 2 days ago is Aspire saying is it's a known issue. It'll be addressed in the next patch. They don't have an ETA for it, but they'll let everyone know when the patch is live. Follow button in the article to get the latest info. So yeah. And these guys, and I'm not saying that they're correlated, but they are developing the KOTOR remakes.
I was gonna say that
which
too.
Let's just speak on that for a little bit. That is insane to me because Aspire, they've only ever been porting all of these games to newer platforms. But if you look at the quality of the ports, it's not like they're going back there and doing a Bluepoint, if you will. Whereas Bluepoint would go and they would like fully remaster them. Usually they'll bump up the frame rate. They'll do a lot of touch-ups, but they'll retain the integrity of the original game. For the most part, these ports are pretty bare bones and basic. And that's fine for what they are because they sell them really cheap. But to be given a full-on remake of one of the greatest Star Wars games, one of the greatest RPGs of our time, I don't know what type of proof of concept they showed investors to get that, but that's
they showed Kotor. They just showed Revan and Kotor. That's all they did. They showed Revan with his purple lightsaber and his mask and said, "Imagine this, but PS5 graphics." And they were like, "Where's the wallet? Where's the paycheck? We're investing." That's all they did.
You know, yeah, I guarantee this is what they did. So they took like the original image of Revan, like right from like the Xbox, right? It was like 360p, 480p if you had the cables, and they're like, okay, but imagine this, and they put like a 4K screenshot and blew it up on TV, but better. It's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Let's go.
That's fucking funny, dude. I am not, like, all jokes aside, I am a little worried. Like I got a little sickly feeling, and I don't want to feel sickly when it comes to Star Wars stuff, because especially Kotor, because like that plot twist and just that whole game in general, like it's insane to think that game exists, like the way that game's developing is in the year it came out.
Mm-hmm.
It really is crazy to think about that game being out the year it came out, for the system it came out, and just all together, considering looking at everything else we had in that time frame for video games.
Yeah, it's crazy because I recently started replaying KOTOR on the Xbox Series X because they have it backwards compatibility, and honest to God, it looks pretty good in 4K. I mean, it's still dated in a lot of respects with the way the menus are handled and of course the controls. But what you cannot escape from that game is just the BioWare charm and how much effort they put into crafting the worlds. Like I think almost every single NPC has fully voiced dialogue. The acting is actually really good. It doesn't come off as stiff in any ways.
Yeah.
And it's just all about expanding everything around you. So there was a lot of attention to detail that went into KOTOR, and I'm remaining hopeful because I don't want this game to be a bust. I've like, there was some controversy about one of the writers working on it who openly said she's not like a big Star Wars fan or whatever.
Yeah,
but
she said that, yeah.
yeah,
I don't think she's attached to it anymore.
no, she's not
I
attached
think
to
she
it
moved
anymore.
on from it. Yeah, I think she moved on from it. Like, some people say she got bullied off. Others just say that she just got offered a better job or something that she'd be more passionate about.
Right. Either way, I feel like this game is still very early in development.
Oh yeah, I don't
so-
think we're gonna see it till like 2025 at the least.
Something along those lines. But there's been a couple of good things that have happened since. Shout out to Anime Gaming Nerd in the chat. They've been hiring ex-BioWare staff for the remake and brought on Saber Interactive as a co-developer. And Saber Interactive is one of the best people in the game if you want someone to help you, because they these are the people who did the Switch port of The Witcher 3, and they do a whole bunch of other outsourcing as well. So they're really good. So fingers crossed that it has a solid direction and they know where they're going. The hiring of ex-BioWare staff is good, but remember, what a lot of people don't realize is, from what era are these BioWare staff coming from? Are these the BioWare staff that worked on KOTOR and Mass Effect? Or are these the BioWare staff that worked on Andromeda and Anthem? Not saying that they can't have the same passion, because, everything does come down to leadership and direction, but, it all depends on what they worked on. But either way, hopefully in the next couple weeks, Switch owners will be able to finally finish KOTOR 2. I really enjoyed KOTOR 2. I know it gets shat on by a lot of people because it's not as iconic as the first one, but I felt...
No, I still think it's a good... I think, like, the game alone gave us a lot of really great, like, famous, like, Sith Lords. I think that's, like, one of the best... I think the design on the Sith Lords for Knights of the Old Republic 2 is probably the best ideas and designs out of any other Sith Lord that Star Wars lore has ever done, in my opinion. From Nihilus to what's her face? So I can't think of names. My brain's so fried. With the 3 purple lightsabers, Talia, and to Scion, the Sith who can't die. Like, just their designs and concepts. It's like Avengers meets Star Wars, essentially. You just got like the mutants of freaking Star Wars in front of you. You got a guy who's eating the Force and eating planets and draining planets of their Force energy, and killing
Star Wars.
Yeah, you get the Galactus of Star Wars, and it's just like there's just so many really good ideas and like designs, and it's funny that it's Obsidian, because like it's the same way how I feel about New Vegas.
I was about to bring that up, the Fallout 3 to New Vegas, because KOTOR 2, for those who don't know, that was rushed out the door. Gabe brought up like they were trying to time it with Revenge of the Sith when that came out, which is so funny because Revenge of the Sith didn't launch till like a year later, so they still, if they wanted to, they could have delayed it and made sure it functioned well. But it's another Obsidian situation where it's like they work on this sequel to a really popular RPG and they have a lot of really good ideas, but they have like half the dev time. It's absolutely insane. This keeps happening to them. It's wild.
Yeah, it's really weird how that all like it just goes back and forth. And I mean, honestly, if the Knights of the Old Republic remake ends up sucking, I'll always have Star Wars: The Old Republic, but that's the only other Knights of the Old Republic game that BioWare's done, and that game has really great storytelling, and it's free to play, and it's still got really great voice acting, and I mean, everything in that game's fully voiced. It's almost like playing like another KOTOR, but just later on in the time period.
It's kind of sad that they never brought that to consoles, because I feel like if you ever wanted like a really big second wind, bringing that to consoles would be like the best approach, especially with how big Final Fantasy 14 blew up being on PlayStation consoles, and they just re-released it on PS5 last year.
Yeah, it is kind of weird how it's never really made its way around consoles. I mean, I know like the MMO market is a really like niche genre when it comes to consoles. That's why there's like not a whole lot of MMOs on the marketplace for PS5 and Xbox. So like I can see why like the money and the returns on it's probably a little skeptics, but I'm really kind of like with what you said with Final Fantasy 14 being as big as it is, and there's a couple like free to play like MMOs are all right, like DC Universe Online if you want to throw that in there. I mean, it still has a dedicated player base, even if it's not like top of the leaderboard. But like, it's really and they did Bless Online, and even Black Desert Online got one. So it's actually kind of surprising that because how old is it? 10 years? Yeah, it's 10 years old now. The Old Republic, the Old Republic's 10 years old. It's 11 at the end of this year. So yeah, it's going on 11 years, and I'm actually really surprised it does not have a console port at all. I mean, it's really easy to run on PC now, considering it's 11 years old. But I think it's one of the best Star Wars storytelling that we have right now, outside of like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, that's literally it. And that's one of the things that everyone's kind of been pissed off at. Like, Star Wars is such a big brand, and it's like only now are they finally putting into development all these newer games, which we probably won't see until 2025 and beyond. But that's not that shocking, considering it's been under EA's clutches for a while, and he just recently got it. Do you want to hear something that is really shocking, but at the same time not shocking, Gabe?
Shock me, Daddy.
Kraven the Animal Lover.
Kraven the Animal. Oh god.
Oh man. All right. So for those who For those who are unaware, for whatever reason, Sony is coming out with a standalone Kraven the Hunter movie, because everything makes sense in the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, the Spunk as they call it. That abbreviation, good god. We had Venom came out. Huge success. Venom 1, Venom 2, Venom 3 is in production. We had Morbius, which unfortunately everybody slept on. Everybody slept on Morbius. They weren't that movie. It was just, you know what? It might be like Marty McFly said, you might not understand it, but your kids are gonna love that. That was
the prequels, man. There's no saving Morbius.
We'll see, man. So Morbius came out this year. How long did it take for everyone to love the prequels? Give or take like 10, 12, 15 years. We'll revisit this conversation in 2036, my friend.
I loved it from the start, even though they weren't like the best. So I can't consider myself as part of the trend.
You can't consider yourself as part of the trend, but you know what? Sometimes you have to subvert the trend, Gabe, and that's what Sony aims to do with this upcoming Kraven movie. This Kraven movie, which has been filming for the past couple months, and no one really cares. Like, you know how usually like you'll see like set leaks for stuff, and it's like, oh my god. Like, for example, Blue Beetle, there was a set leak and we saw what his costume looked like, and it looked awesome.
Everybody was talking about that. That was disgusting. That was so good.
The Kraven leaks that we saw was just this dude on a van in a suit, and I'm like, if you didn't tell me what this movie was, I'd have no idea what it is, man. But yeah, we learned some things in this interview with the star of the movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver in the MCU, and now he's, for whatever reason, jumping over to Sony. But we learned some things in this interview. The first one being that it was shot exclusively on location, which sets it apart from other Marvel productions, which do a blend of like on location and a lot of blue screen, which we've seen a lot of in the recent years. But yeah, shot entirely on location, which, all right, cool. I don't know what that means. It's like, yeah, we shot on location.
It's because they're like, it seems to be the trend. The Batman was shot on location, and Mandalorian and all the Star Wars stuff's being shot on location. The Marvel stuff's being shot on location. This is the go-to.
For all we know,
investors invest. Let's go.
For all we know, this dude shot it in a coffee shop or something. I don't know.
Shot in a coffee shop.
I don't understand why, but basically he was talking about how he's excited to play Kraven because, and I quote, he's not an alien or a wizard. He's just a hunter, a human with conviction, an animal lover, and a protector of the natural world. He's a very, very cool character and one of Marvel's most iconic, notorious anti-heroes and Spider-Man's #1 rival. All right, there are so many things wrong with that statement, bro. I listen, I understand that not every actor who signs on to these movies, they really care about the characters, because most often than not, it's a paycheck for them. Sometimes they really love the character, like Iman Vellani or Benedict Cumberbatch, or like all these people who, if you listen to them, like Henry Cavill when he talks about Superman.
Jared Leto loved playing Morbius.
like Jared Leto as Morbius. He took
I drank blood for 3 months to prepare for this role.
Yeah, and they do some crazy stuff. But I'm looking at this, and it's like an animal lover and a protector of the natural world. And this is what I don't understand. Listen, it's one thing if you want to make standalone movies based off Sony, like Spider-Man characters. All right, cool. But to me, none of these characters come off as villainous. And I know they're trying to go for a different angle, like an anti-hero. Not every single one of Spider-Man's villains is an anti-hero. Some of them are straight up villainous.
Like, it works for Venom, and because the way Venom as a character develops into, even if they rush the whole, villain to anti-hero arc on the character that they did with the movies, because they straight up was like, yeah, he's an anti-hero right off the bat. At least like in that situation, it does end up panning out just because of who Venom is as a character and what he becomes later on in the comics. But all these other characters, it's like, why it doesn't make any sense. And like I haven't seen Morbius, and I've said this before, at least with Venom I was entertained. I don't think it's like the best movie. I still can't understand or comprehend a Venom movie without Spider-Man. And it's like, the scene from Solo, I'm not okay with it, but I'll accept it. What Lando says. But like, at least in Venom, I can be entertained. Morbius, it seemed like nobody was entertained. And then it just seems like with Kraven, it seems like the same situation again. Like, no one's going to be entertained. Like, well, like, all these extra fancy words don't really mean anything when the project is still in the toilet,
Absolutely. And it's so weird. Like, they're doing all these projects without Spider-Man. That is what kills me. Like, Venom is already stretching it because his origin is tied to Spider-Man. If you wanted to start off as it being tied to Spider-Man and then he goes off and does his own things, I'm perfectly fine with that, because that's what happened in the comics. He became the Lethal Protector. That's cool. But everybody else has a vested interest, and I'm sorry, but them making a movie about Morbius standalone, that was the weirdest thing to me, because Michael,
that's weird as fuck.
Because he's a cool character, but he's not A-list, B-list. He's like C-list Spider-Man villain tier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's not really included in like the Sinister Six lineups that we know. He's just there. If anything, I feel like you should have used Morbius, worked out a deal with Marvel, put him in a Blade movie. That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, I said the same thing, and I even thought that too. I was like, I wonder if like this Morbius is just like a pivot change. Like maybe they're like not actually going the way they're going. Like maybe like this whole like Marvel Sony partnership, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, toxic relationship, whatever this toxic relationship is going, maybe they're working out some sort of game plan to benefit both each other. But no, it's like you said, C tier villain being introduced for Spider-Man, which again, not even a big deal among the Sinister Six. And like with Kraven, it's like Kraven did a lot to benefit Spider-Man in the comics, as far as like him helping him, show him how to, use his Spidey sense, and how he helped, Spider-Man developed as Spider-Man when he was to detach himself from Peter Parker and becoming Spider-Man and becoming the more animalistic side or insect side, whatever you want to call it, the creature side of Spider-Man, helped him get deeper into that part. That's probably like what I've always known Kraven most iconic for, is making Spider-Man more of his superhero self. But like outside of that,
and that's the thing, because they're one of the most his most iconic story is Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yes.
If anyone has ever read that story, that is so deeply intrinsic to Spider-Man and what they did with that. It's a very dark story too. But that's not a story that you can do without a Spider-Man. From what it sounds like to me, I feel like we're going to get this weird family drama where there's this lineage associated with Kraven, and he's going to defy it. And then that's what confuses me. An animal lover and a protector of the natural world. So is he like, what is he going to be hunting then? People who prey on animals?
It's Aquaman with animals. That's what I think I commented that on, or replies, whatever you want to call it, on Twitter to you when you posted that. I was like, okay, so I was like, he fucks animals. So I was like, so is this just Aquaman with animals? Like, is that it? Like, they're just rebranding the character, as the term I keep using, pivot.
Literally, it honestly, that's what it sounds like. They're trying to make it into like whatever universe is going to evolve into. They've got Madam Web coming out, and I think their end game. Exactly. They're just throwing anything at the wall. I feel like their end game, what they're trying to do, because none of this shit is going to make sense as a Sinister Six movie. Because what do these guys have against Spider-Man? You know, nothing. They don't even have a Spider-Man in their universe. So
The Spider-Man guy sounds pretty interesting.
we should team up, Gabe. So what I think their end goal is, they're just going to announce a lot of movies, and we all know the reason why they're doing this, so they can retain the rights. Because for those that don't know, Sony, they have this deal with Marvel where if they don't have some type of a Spider-Man cinematic movie in development every 5 years or so, then the rights lapse to Marvel. That's why when Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 didn't work out, they immediately went to work on rebooting it. Like immediately. Like they canceled it, and then a few months later Andrew Garfield was cast. It was like, what? So yeah, they have a vested interest, and the benefit of them releasing all of these movies is that they perpetually reset the clock every single time. Like Morbius came out, okay, 2027. No. 2023 we have this movie, and then Madam Web. So it's like they're always resetting the clock. And unfortunately, that's what it's going to be. And I don't think it's ever going to change unless all of these movies consistently bomb. But if their end game is this whole multiverse movie where, and you know, they're going to drop a fat stack to bring back Toby and Andrew in their multiverse Spider-Verse movie. Because that's what they want. They want another No Way Home, but where they can keep all of the profits. So they want it to be basically, we're going to bring in Toby and Andrew again. Tom's going to come back. We're going to have a live action Miles Morales. We might even bring in the animated Miles Morales for no reason. We might do all of these things.
Even bring in the animated Miles.
Fuck it. We might bring in the Spider-Man from the 90s animated series. Like, it just,
bring in Spider-Man for the MTV one.
Yo, exactly. Neil Patrick Harris Spider-Man, like Drake. Well, they can't bring in Drake Bell Spider-Man anymore for obvious reasons. Like,
why? Because he likes kids.
Exactly. I think there's a problem when trying to sell a movie to kids. But yeah, that's that situation. And our final piece of rapid fire topics, which is not so rapid fire considering all these topics are funny as hell, has to do with PlayStation, the only division at Sony that seems to have a brain. That might change depending on how you feel about this article. PlayStation is going to be skipping Gamescom. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. They have announced that they're going to be skipping Gamescom, which is an ever-growing list of publishers that won't be making an appearance at the popular convention held in Cologne, Germany. And they won't be at Jeff Keighley's opening night live stream. So yeah, this is just another example of Sony just bowing out from all of these industry events. And it's something that started back in 2019, where they bowed out from E3 and all these other events that they used to have showcases at. They're just not doing it anymore. And it's kind of become obvious nowadays. Sony, because they have the market share when it comes to what people are looking for in gaming, at least if you're pertaining it to like mainstream PlayStation, Xbox discussions, they know people go to them for news, not the other way around. They don't have to prove anything because they're on top, and they'll do their state of plays. And it's obvious because every single one of those state of plays, you look at the views and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And yeah, why spend all this money flying people out to these events, putting on this showcase when you could literally just, I'm serious, open up Sony Vegas, put together this thing,
Sony Vegas,
have whatever AI voice girl, because I'm not convinced that that's an actual woman who's doing those voiceovers.
Neither am I. And especially with that shit about Alexa that came out today about them being able to recreate, dead ones' voices just by hearing the line. AI.
Exactly. So
cheaper.
It's much cheaper, and you guys know when it comes to this man Jim Ryan ain't running no charity. He's not doing things for the fans anymore. Like I would not be surprised.
Jim Ryan's slogan to PlayStation's "fuck the gamer." That's what it's
straight up. If listen, Jim Ryan's like, listen, if it ain't making us money, what the fuck we doing? And yeah, all these showcases, showing up at all these events, that costs them money, and they don't need to do that anymore. So
I was actually trying to look up analytics because there was just like a lot of like buzz and like PR talk on how much they spent, but I was trying to see how much they particularly spent in The Last of Us Part 2 show at E3 where they had the old tent outside and
Oh
all that
God,
thing.
I was at that E3, bro. I was at that E3.
Were you really?
I was at that E3, and dude, it was the weirdest thing. Okay, so basically, like, all right, so we tried to get into the venue. We couldn't get into the venue because we didn't understand it at the time, because we were wondering why. Like, we should have gotten into the event, because we showed up like mad early. Even if we got like nosebleed seats, we should have been good. And then someone told us like, no, they're doing something different this time. They're doing like this off-site thing, and it's a tent. And I'm like, a tent? What? So what we did was we ended up going to the movie theater about like 15 minutes away, and we watched it there. And bro, it was the most awkward experience, because like, we were in this movie theater, because they didn't show this to you guys, but they were showing us like B-roll footage of like outside of the tent and the in-between times as they got ready. And it took so long to switch the streams from like the Resident Evil 2 remake trailer to when they went into the tent. And it was the most awkward experience in the world. And we were all watching this in the theater like, what are they doing? But like that was an experiment, and I don't know if that was something Jim Ryan approved or something he's just like, never again. No, that was before he became the CEO. So that was 2018. That was weird. And then they got the guy with the dudidgery or whatever. Like, that was cool, but I'm like, this is not like, that's cool for people there, but for us watching, that was weird, bro.
Awkward experience.
But you were saying you had something with like the analytics and how much that cost, or?
Oh yeah, I was curious to see how much they just particularly in that event, but I was curious to see how much they spent on that year for E3, because Jim Ryan just seems to be like the money guy. He's like, nickel and dime, whatever, push the profit to the max kind of dude. So I was curious to see like prior heads how much they were spending on their E3 conventions, and particularly that one, just because that was the one that seemed to be really like a whole actual setup offsite, like you're saying, like an actual event in E3 outside of an E3, if I would say.
Yeah.
And so I was curious on how much they actually spent on just literally everything from the setup to the stage. I'm guessing the space. I'm guessing they have to pay for the space, the time. Like, I just, everybody that was involved in making that happen, I wanted to know how much they spent on it, because it would, to me, begin to make sense, especially if Sony's trying to like save money, why they would just dip out of E3 and, just like you said, have Alexa give the announcements on a Sony Vegas, Photoshop, state of play. They hired some guy on Fiverr to use Sony, Sony Vegas. Hey, bro, here's $50, set it up. Sign this NDA, by the way, as well.
Yo, so it's I mean, it is. I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of disappointing, because that is something that I do look forward to every year, just seeing these companies at the showcases, even if they're not showing off their heavy hitters, if they show what's coming out in the next 3 months or so. Like, we were talking about how Xbox, I feel like instead of doing one big showcase that's like in 90 minutes, they do seasonal showcases that are maybe like 25 minutes, and you just get a look at what's coming out soon. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Jim Ryan doesn't want to bring back PlayStation Experience. But then again, just with how weird things are right now in the era of COVID, and as we transition back to somewhat normal life, if there ever is going to be normal life, I don't know. I mean, like, we'll have to see. I think next year, like we talked about in the show, will definitely be the year that tells these companies exactly what they're going to do going forward. Are they going to continue doing these in-person shows, or are they going to be something that's so like low key and they don't go crazy? But I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. And our I said that was gonna be our last rapid fire topic, but we have one more before we finish up the news for the week, and this has to do with another game that we learned more about, speaking of PlayStation, at State of Play, Final Fantasy 16. The game's producer, Naoki Yoshida, for those who play Final Fantasy, y'all know him as Yoshi P. Definitely one of the
Daddy Bless.
Yes, exactly. Definitely one of the most.
Daddy P.
Yep.
Daddy YP.
One of the most talented people over at Square Enix. I would say he is their crowning jewel. He's producing the project. He's basically the face of the project, and it's gotten a lot of people excited, especially if you're a fan of Final Fantasy 14, because he's something that it's so, because we hear this a lot. Like you remember, Gabe, like there was this like the sixth generation on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, I think was definitely the weakest generation when it came for like Japanese game development. From from a mainstream perspective, from everything like top to bottom.
Because literally my favorite RPG of that gen was literally Lost Odyssey.
Exactly. So in that generation, like there's always been, and even going into like the PS4 generation, it wasn't until like the back end of the PS4 generation where we saw a lot more Japanese RPGs, especially the mainstream ones, come back to full form, with things like Dragon Quest and all that. But one thing that has always been elusive when it came to Japanese game development compared to like Western game development was the access to the talent, especially when it came down to speaking about speak your thoughts, like improvements on what you want to see in games, blah blah blah. Yoshi P basically he put that at the forefront of everything he does. Obviously that came from working on an MMO, the most successful MMO out right now. But he's taken that into account with Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 16, I'm sorry. And he's been listening to a lot of the feedback in the past 2 years people have been saying about the game. And, it's gotten a lot of people excited because there's so much transparency going on with this game that is a stark contrast to the previous mainline title, 15, where, for the better part of 10 years, we didn't know what was going on with this game. When they showed off the game in 2013, we didn't really start hearing more about the game until, the final year came out. And even then, it was always disappointing updates like, you won't be able to play as all the party members at launch, and we're changing the story, and we're cutting things and putting it in like movies and all that nonsense.
Yoshi, that first trailer, by the way, just to clarify, just to put that out there, lives in my head rent free. That trailer of him running down the building.
Oh, we talking about
shooting.
You talk about for 13 or for 15 when they rebranded it, right?
Yeah, 50 when they rebranded it. Yeah, when it was versus 13.
Yep, it was a great trailer, man. They made some good trailers. But Yoshi P, he's basically avoiding all of that stuff. So he's very transparent on everything to talk about. Like he basically tells us every single stage of game development as it is. He's like, yeah, we're recording the dialogue, we're doing QC, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. But we learned some things about the game in regards to the combat of it. Obviously, this one is more action focused, but it's going to be completely different from let's say Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was sort of a hybrid of the two, where you could play it as an action game, but you could slow down time and you could issue your commands to your allies, a la, the Mass Effect games. This one is purely action focused, which is very obvious if you look at the gameplay. And the main combat designer worked on Devil May Cry, so that is awesome. And I can't wait to see like what spins the Final Fantasy world will put on this action system. So that makes it exciting. But the most important thing I think we learned from this interview that he did was the fact that the game will not be open world. So
that's a surprise for me.
Yeah, so basically, stark contrast to Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 16 is not going to be open world. It's going to be more open ended. We're still going to be, the story is going to span the entire globe, but we wanted to avoid an open world design. And we focused on independent area-based game design that gives players a better feel of a truly global scale. So, in my personal opinion, I'm excited about this. Just based off of the Japanese RPGs I have played that have been open world, a lot of them really miss the mark on what makes a good open world. I feel like Western RPGs definitely have a better grasp at it, mainly because they've been doing it for the longest time by comparison. But if you have environments, like let's just say hub worlds, for example, that are definitely more closed off and limited by comparison to, a truly open world game, I feel like you can do a lot more with that. My biggest complaint for 15 was the fact that, you give us this open world, but the world isn't alive. It's empty. It wasn't alive, and the side quests they gave you were just so bare bones. Like, go clip this nigga's toenails there, go get that fish there. Like it was.
Go clip his toenail.
Straight up, like, it was like the same side quest, rinse and repeat. And yeah, that happens in a lot of open world games. But the fact that it's not open world, I'm glad that they're doing this. It's something that they know. Yeah, we're not going to do this.
Kind of like Jedi Fallen Order is kind of like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have basically every planet is a hub world.
Yeah,
and they're all diverse. They've got their own biomes, if you will. So I'm excited about this. I really hope it's more, because it is a AAA game. It's less. Like the only game I could really think of that most people would know in terms of like modern JRPGs that have like bigger designs is like the Tales series, and the Tales games.
I've only played
Those
one of those.
Okay, so the Tales games, they're definitely more open-ended worlds, but the worlds are basically dead. So I'm hoping that this isn't like that and it has more diversity going on. But what do you think about this situation?
I think it's fine. Honestly, not everything needs to be open world, and not everything what's the word? I just lost my train of thought. Not everything needs to be open world, but it's okay for games to be open world. That's what I was trying to say. So I feel like if the narrative fits the shoe, then the shoe fits the foot, and it's good to go.
I like that. I like that.
So personally, I don't have any issues with it, honestly. As to me, when I play Final Fantasy, I have like a couple things I look into for me to enjoy the Final Fantasy. Are the characters good? That's like my biggest one. Is like my draw into characters. That's why Final Fantasy X is the best Final Fantasy, hands down. I know slander, Chris. I like
listen. Hey, it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. That's fine, Gabe.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
fine.
wrong all the time. It's on this podcast. Pizza, Star Wars, you name it. I'm
Never that. Pizza, yes. Star Wars, no.
Pizza
Never
wrong.
that. Pizza, yes. Star Wars, no.
But I like Titus a lot as a character. I liked Aaron a lot. I liked Yumi was a really good character.
Yuna, mispronouncing all their names, bro.
Dude, I'm just not with it today, dude.
I feel it, man.
I've had the longest fucking day of my life. I cannot think at all. Yuna, sorry, I cannot think.
There you go.
The Yuna
this man was saying
was a really good character. Yuna was a really good character. It's League of Legends. That's what's in my head. Yumi's like this mystical cat. Don't ask. Anyways. But Yuna, I really like Yuna as a character. I really liked her skill set a lot in the game as well. Like her summons, her whole aesthetic was really good. And then they gave her 2 Glocks and then in 10 2. And
I love 10-2. 10-2 was fun as fuck, bro.
10-2 was fun as fuck. It really was. It really was something different compared to 10. But I just like that's like so like for me it's the characters, it's the world, which usually Final Fantasy, the world's kind of like all similar for the most part, you know. I think I like 10 because it had this apocalypse effect, which is something we didn't really have in like the other Final Fantasies. With you know the whole world like ending and the time skip and all that. There was just so much like random shit that they were trying to tell. It was like almost like a psychedelic experience, you know. But the world is like the other thing I look for in a Final Fantasy, characters, and the biggest one I will have to say is story. Story. This is why if I go off a story, Crisis Core is my favorite. Yeah, but Crisis Core is the hands down favorite one. So like with those 3 being said, that's what I kind of look forward to this next one. Like I don't care if it's turn-based, I don't care if it's action combat. I like both of those. I know a lot of people have their own preferences. Turn-based seems to be like a thing of the past for Final Fantasy now. Which is kind of funny because it was built on turn-based. But where like games like Yakuza went into turn-based.
that is the funny and it did it very well. It brought back like old school, like not old school Final Fantasy vibes, but like, you know, like Final Fantasy 5 in that era, that type, bro. Like, you know, it's funny. But yeah, it's I'm everyone knows Final Fantasy 16. It's always been my most anticipated next gen game. I'm so glad it's not cross gen. And he was saying how when we dropped that first trailer, we were thinking about maybe putting it on PS4. And when I read that, I got so fucking scared, bro. I was like, no.
Same. The hardware drawbacks just need to stop.
Yeah.
It needs to stop. So like I feel like that's what would hold it back so hard, because it's almost like we got I don't want to say 15, but almost it's like we're getting a 15, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when this game would have come out, 2023, if it was still on the PS4, bro, can you imagine PS4? Like, dude,
that shit needs to like just in general, outside of Final Fantasy, like games just need to stop being PS4 and Xbox One, dude. Like they just need to fucking stop. They just need to
Dude.
stop. Like at this point, we're how many years are we into this cycle
So
for
this
the new
is
gen?
this holiday season will be our third year. That'll be the start of the third year.
Yeah. So like we need to just fucking stop. Like this shit needs to we PS5 Series X, we need to see that hardware be put up. So I'm glad that 16 is, taking that leap. So 15 stays in its own generation, cool. 16's in this generation.
Mhm.
And I'm really, 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 really excited to see what the capabilities it's gonna have. Like it's funny, the most exciting thing about the game for me is not even the combat or the how it's gonna run or the generation gap on it. It's actually the theme of it. The medieval theme is what has me most excited. I don't know if that's just because I like The Witcher 3 or Dragon Age, or I just like medieval shit altogether. But like the medieval theme Final Fantasy, and I think it's kind of feels like it's taking a step away from like other Final Fantasies. I feel like it's making itself different in some ways. It has me really, really, really excited.
Absolutely, bro. And I love the setting because the thing is about, how the best way I could describe it is like, you remember how everybody loves World War II shooters until the first Modern Warfare hit the scene. Now everyone hates old school shooters. They want futuristic.
Dude,
and then after like 7-8 years, we went back to World War II shooters, World War I shooters. And then, the funny thing is, like, after 2 years, everyone's like, nah, just stop it. Just don't make it futuristic. Don't make it old school. Just put it as a hybrid. And I'm glad that because the thing is, Square, they have so many different games in development right now under the Final Fantasy brand. So you have Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is like their quasi-modern / futuristic type game. And they're having, Rebirth come out next fall. And you have 16, which is just straight up medieval, which I love. I love as a concept, especially a AAA medieval game like this from a Japanese studio. You don't really see that often, man.
I'm all for the blending pot of all of this. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So it's currently slated to come out summer 2023, whether that's June, July, August, or it gets delayed. We have no idea, but either way, I'm looking forward to it. So that, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, wraps up the news portion of tonight's episode of the Sweaty Cast. Timestamps will be included down below once the stream is finished. So check back in a few hours if you just want to scrub to certain portions, or if you're listening on the playback, the timestamps will be up later. Now we're going to move into, for the final hour of the show, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be doing a full-on discussion for Star Wars Obi Wan Kenobi, because the series just wrapped up this week. And like last week's, the conclusion of that show, we said we would be speaking on Obi Wan Kenobi. There goes Gabe with the Empire shirt. We'd be speaking on Obi Wan Kenobi once it was fully completed. So what we're going to do for the first part of this hour is we're going to be doing, the first thing, we're just going to be doing our spoiler-free thoughts. So it's going to be spoiler-free. It's going to be a quick back and forth between Gabe and I. We're going to speak our piece. We're going to be dancing around the spoilers. But honest to God, given the type of show that Obi Wan Kenobi is, it's hard to do that. So obviously that section only lasts like 5 minutes or so if we're lucky. And then later on, we're going to go into the spoiler-filled discussion where we're going to talk about every single thing that happened throughout all the episodes. So this Obi-Wan show it's been through a lot. If you guys are Star Wars fans, you know the struggle that it's taken to get this series off the ground. It started back in 2017. They were pitching this as a standalone Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. And then when Solo bombed, they were just like, let's reevaluate this because, Lucasfilm learns all the weirdest lessons from their bombs. It's crazy how that works.
Right? Yeah.
So they're like, okay, Solo bombed, so people don't want to see legacy characters in standalone films. And it's like, no. But either way, they transitioned it into a series. Exactly. So they transitioned it into a series when Disney Plus was announced. And ever since then, it's just been back and forth, script rewrites, people coming in and out, revolving door. And it wasn't until like late 2020, early 2021, when they finally nailed that, hey, this show's going to start filming. And what we got is Obi Wan Kenobi, a no longer a limited series, just a season on Disney Plus, 6 episodes. And overall, I gotta say personally, my piece on this is it's all right. It's okay. It's nothing crazy. Now, going into this, I had a lot of expectations because, I mean, first things first, the elephant in the room. You're bringing back Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, characters that, honest to God, like whether or not you liked the prequels, and let's be honest, like the prequels, very mixed bag. They've got a lot of good to them, but the actors were definitely the ones who were carrying that through George Lucas's very, very particular writing. So seeing those guys come back, seeing the fact that like, okay, it's going to be exploring a really interesting and vulnerable period in Obi-Wan's life. It's going to be mixing in the Inquisitors, which, you know, if you've been a fan of recent Star Wars lore, if you've played Jedi Fallen Order, that's also very exciting. So there was a lot of things that me personally, I was excited about. 6 episode limited series, so they could develop this character throughout the course of the show. And honest to God, I kind of wish that we had gotten that movie, because watching the 6 episodes, you know, the episodes range anywhere from like 35 minutes, 40 minutes to like 50 minutes. I'm watching this show, and me personally, I felt that there was a lot of dead air. There was a lot of stuff going on in this show that didn't need to happen. There was a lot of stuff happening with characters that happen just because they need to fill in time. The things that I expected to see in a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of what they were pitching it as, I got, but everything else was just not up to that same caliber. And if you go into a show and you get what you want to see, but it comes at the cost of everything else around it being extremely subpar, and the journey that it takes you to get to that good stuff is just a whole bunch of hoopla, I come away disappointed. So while I think it's all right as a show, and you know, it's not as bad. I've seen some people say it's worse than the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think that. It's also not as good as it should be for the caliber of a Star Wars show after coming off of Mandalorian. For the legacy of Obi Wan Kenobi, there was a lot of questionable things going on from production design. A lot of the times it felt very cheap in some respects. CGI was very inconsistent. There was a lot of stuff in this show where I wonder, did they take this 100% serious, or was there something going on behind the scenes? It felt very, very rushed in a lot of respects. And, you know, the more I think about it, the more I question the quality of Lucasfilm stuff going forward, if they're literally just trying to put out content just to fill in these gaps, rather than them being like meticulous and formulated and saying like, okay, this is what we're going to do with this show. This is what we're going to set out to do. With Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's like they checked one box, and then everything else is just kind of like, we'll figure it out on the day. But Gabe, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? Obi-Wan from its inception to the final show we got now. What do you think about it?
Honestly, the complete opposite of you.
Oh snap! Here we go. Now this is where the fun begins. Let's go.
Oh God. I think one thing I will agree on, I would want a movie mainly before a tighter story and a shorter runtime. I think that's like the only reason why I'd want a movie, and obviously it probably like your issues that you're having. I noticed a couple of those throughout the episode, like throughout like my rewatches, like CGI and stuff like that. I feel like there would be a lot more consistency as far as production value goes if it was a movie compared to like a Disney Plus series. But then again, like with these Disney Plus Star Wars series, they're supposed to be taking them seriously and giving us the full production value, because the whole reason why we've never gotten any Star Wars TV series previously is because it was too expensive. It cost too much money. Hence why Star Wars Underworld never took off for Spike TV, even though they had like 6 seasons of that written, or George had 6 seasons of that written, but it was just too much money to do. And so I guess, like, you know, Star Wars has this par as far as it has this look. It has this look that you look at it and you know it's Star Wars, no matter what, from like Solo to the sequels, Rogue One, it looks like Star Wars. The quality just looks like Star Wars. So I feel like in that aspect, I do agree on some levels. Overall, I really like the show. Like, I like the show a lot. Like, I rewatched it. Like I told you, I've already rewatched a couple episodes of it. I really enjoy just this corner of this universe as far as the time period goes and what we were shown throughout the 6 episodes. I mean, me personally, I think, it's definitely better than Book of Boba Fett. Like, I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett, but like, I didn't like love it. I didn't think it was like there was a couple of really great moments in Book of Boba Fett that didn't have anything to do with Book of Boba without Boba Fett.
What are you talking about? There was one moment from Book of Boba Fett that's so iconic. And how are you standing here, sitting here, doing this podcast, and you don't? You know what, Gabe? That's not very like a bantha of you, my friend. Not very like a bantha of you at all, sir.
That iconic moment, it is a pretty good meme. It is a pretty good meme, especially with the Tamora being in on it as well.
He's great. He's so good.
Dude, that man's just energy.
Yo, straight up, bro. I was watching everybody at Star Wars Celebration, and then there's just Tamora Morrison doing the most, and it's amazing.
It's excellent, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I just enjoyed it. I don't know. Like, there was only like Book of Boba Fett. There was a lot of stuff where I was like, all right, is it over yet? Or like, like, when are we gonna get the next like breadcrumb for this episode that's gonna make me want to watch it next week? With Kenobi, it was the opposite. With Kenobi, I just wanted to live in that show as long as possible. Like, I was enjoying every interaction, every moment in that show, loving Ewan's acting from start to finish, just absolutely just engulfed in how much he's grown with the Kenobi character from what we've seen 20 years ago. So it's been about 20 years.
Yeah, 17 years.
17.
Close enough, man. Close enough. Jesus.
Close. Yeah, close.
Remember when Force Awakens is 7 years old, bro?
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. And even then it was such a big deal because it's like the first Star Wars movie in 10 years. Bro, look at it now. Oh my God.
Damn.
Time.
You could have had a kid then. You could have had a kid then. They'd be 7 years old now.
Dude, that's absolutely insane. They could be 7 years old and cognizant of what Star Wars is. That's absolutely insane.
Oh shit, yeah.
Bro, that's hitting. Dude, this is now, like, you remember when you used to hear on YouTube like how I got into Star Wars? Well, my dad was really big into it in like the 70s and 80s. And when I was born in like the late 80s and 90s, he showed me the VHSs and blah, blah, blah. And now it's theoretically, we're at the point where you could have somebody who grew up with the prequels, and let's say they're in their 20s when those movies came out, and they had a kid when, like, let's just say like a few years before The Force Awakens came out. Now the kid is grown, and now the kid is like fully absorbed in all this stuff. And it's shit. My dad, he grew up watching the prequels in theaters and all this, and I was like, what? It's bro, this is what people don't understand. When people say like Star Wars is a cultural icon that's existed for decades, that is what folks mean. Star Wars is over 50 years old. Like, bro.
Yeah, that's a lot of generations. Absolutely. My grandpa was really big into Star Wars. That was when Star Wars and Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. So I saw a lot of Star Wars when I would be with
50.
them.
It's about to be 50 years old, bro.
Dude,
45 years.
That's insane, dude. My kid's gonna be 6 when it becomes 50.
Oh my God, bro. Your kid's gonna become 6. And then by that point, we're going to have like a whole new era of Star Wars content. Like, we're now getting into original trilogy, prequels, sequels, and now the post stuff. That's wild.
It's insane really to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just like the series a lot. I mean, there was definitely stuff that I could complain about. I think it's better, in my opinion. I think it's better than Book of Boba Fett, and I think it's better than Mandalorian season 1, in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
In my opinion.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So I'm trying to see how we can speak on some things without diving into spoilers, because it's just
really hard,
bro. It's so
really
vanilla.
hard.
This is so vanilla and missionary. Like, I liked it, but this and that and everything. So I think what, like that's our verdict for right now, you guys. Spoiler free version.
Chris didn't like it. I did. There we go.
Spoiler free version. Chris was underwhelmed. Gabe loved it, and he was crying tears of joy at every single second of every single episode. So now we're going to dive into the fun stuff. We're going to dive into the spoiler-filled version, where we're going to be talking all about the stuff that went down throughout the 6 episodes. So if you are listening, whether it's live or on the playback, and you haven't watched the show, or if you just don't care, we're talking about spoilers. Okay, so here's my thing, Gabe. I think my biggest problem with this show is the fact that it didn't really, how do I say this? Every single thing that you expected about the show, you got, and it really didn't do much else to further your enjoyment of the Star Wars world at large. It was more along the lines of, okay, you want to see a show about Obi Wan Kenobi down in the dumps? Sure. That's what you're going to get. That's fine. That's cool. But there's nothing else in this show, whether they seeded it or not, that I'm thinking, wow, this could really go places. And I'm not speaking specifically in the terms of world building, but if you're going to do this show and you're going to introduce aspects of things like the Inquisitors, and you're going to bring in characters like Bail Organa and Princess Leia, and you're going to introduce all these other characters, and none of them really hold any weight to them, I question, like, why even have them in this show at all, right? Because for me, this show answered just one particular, maybe not a question, if you will, but it only succeeded in one thing, and that was the line from Return of the Jedi. I think it was Return of the Jedi. I believe so. It might have been Empire. I'm not sure, but I think it was Return of the Jedi. Where Obi-Wan said, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. I always wondered when I was a kid, why would, I mean, obviously that's a movie that came out in the 80s versus the stuff we have now. So you kind of have to, like some people say, how do you believe Ewan McGregor is going to become Alec Guinness in just a matter of 7 years? It's just like one of those leaps in Star Wars we kind of have to just accept, and that's fine. That's okay. But that line was always so interesting to me because he's more machine man now than man, twisted than evil. And after watching the prequels, I question, like, how did Obi-Wan really know that about Anakin? You know what I'm saying? Like, what about him was more machine than man? Like, what about it would make him think that? Because that's a very particular thing to say. And this show answered that question in the final episode when you see how in their final duel, or their precursor to their final duel, you see exactly why Obi-Wan would have that mindset, which is like what I got out of the show, and that's cool. But everything else I'm seeing, I'm like, you didn't need 6 episodes to give me that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this, honest to God, could have been like a 1-episode special. It could have been a 1-episode special, or maybe a movie, a nice, like, coherent movie where you focus just on Obi-Wan and tell this story, and it brings you to that point, and that's where we're answering. But everything else with, like, Princess Leia and how she keeps getting kidnapped, to the Reva character, and then the stuff going on with, like, these random folks, these random survivors, these refugees, and Kumail Nanjiani's character. I'm just like, none of this stuff is necessarily bad, but it's like, you don't make me care about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think about that stuff?
I agree and disagree in some parts. I feel like a lot of it was just to set up plot, like a story to get Obi-Wan off planet, because I feel like that's the biggest issue right there, is like, how are you going to get Obi-Wan off planet? Because in most stories, that we know about Kenobi is that he just stayed on Tatooine outside of what is it? The whole holocron dish out, how he gave out like his special message on holocrons that gave instructions on Jedis on on what not to do, basically saying, hey, don't go to the temple, don't do this, you're the last of your line, stay alive at all costs, don't use this, don't do that, like kind of like a guideline. Cal had one of the, or not Cal, he had it, but it wasn't his. It was I forgot her name already. The Jedi who cut herself off from the Force. Kanan, Jarrus, and Rebels, he had one too. So like one question for me that I've always wanted to have answered was, how did all these people get these holocrons with this encoded message that Kenobi made? Because the one he left on the Jedi Temple in Revenge of the Sith was not at all the same message. And it wasn't a hologram message. It was the coding he put in the Jedi Temple that emits out saying to not come back here. It's a trap. But I think like my biggest issues with the show, if I were to like pick one out, would probably be how fast return to form he became. Because in the first couple the first 3 episodes, like Kenobi just straight sucks. Like he's not a really good fighter. He was winded in the second episode. He's using a blaster, using the Force to lift up Leia, took like everything out of him. Like he's just out of shape. He's just not the guy who he was, where it felt like he boosted back up. But I mean, then again, what is, lost can be found. So that's like another argument that could be used against that. Like just because he's stopped using the Force for so long doesn't ever mean that the Force ever really left him to begin with. He just has to learn how to reconnect in that way. But I felt like that part of the show was really rushed as far as him getting back into who he is. I think that's like my biggest complaint. Same with like Reva. I felt like her character, like I understood what her character was. Her character was the consequence of Obi-Wan and Anakin. That was her whole design. Like whether it was intentional or not, Anakin going to the temple and killing everybody, and her being a part of that, part of the youngling groups, and then Obi-Wan not being there, being a Jedi, even if it wasn't intentionally, she was in some way, and obviously Anakin being his pupil, they were all connected in one way or another, even if it wasn't intentionally. So I get like that part of the story, but like it didn't feel like her set role in the show really made any sense.
Yeah, that's
Like
the thing about the Reva character. And when we talked about this before, I love the idea of an Inquisitor who basically, they all have issues. Let's be real about life for a second.
Yes.
I all have issues, but I love the idea of an Inquisitor who is conflicted and maybe doesn't want to be doing the stuff that they're doing. And looking at the character of Reva, it was interesting because like you were thinking, okay, how are they going to tie in this character to this story of Obi-Wan? Oh, wow, that's interesting. Make her a child of the Order 66, genocide. And how they would tie this into Anakin. I'm like, okay, that's a really interesting approach. But to the same degree, the way that they handled her character, because the way she comes off, like in the first scene that we see her, she's very brash. And that's fine if you're a villain. You're very brash, established dominance, blah, blah, blah. But she keeps making these dumb mistakes throughout the course of the show. And it's happened on no less than 3 occasions that I could think of off the top of my head. And it just comes to the point where I'm just like, this character has gone from being potentially threatening and menacing to being annoying. And that's the thing I don't like to see when it comes to villains. You know what I'm saying? Like the only time I ever want to see that is if like, it's like, let's say for example, like a last ditch effort where the hero beats down the villain and the villain's like, oh, I'm going to blow up the base or whatever. Like that's one thing. But for her, it's like she keeps doing these dumb ass things, going against the code and the creed of what they're trying to do. And every single time they got, what's his name from Fast and Furious? He plays an Inquisitor. Every single time he comes on and he's just saying, "What are you doing? You're making a mess." Blah blah blah. And then Reva's just like, it got so frustrating for me as a character for her because whatever they do to reveal why she acts the way that she does, it's not going to be warranted or earned. And sure enough, like we get the major exposition dump towards the end of episode 4 where she's saying like, yeah, I was a child of this. Where were you, Obi-Wan? What were you doing? And I should have felt something.
Fifth episode.
Oh, that was fifth episode, right?
Yeah, fifth episode.
Fourth episode was where she just kidnapped Leia again and they had to go rescue her again. I'm like, oh, great.
That was the temple episode. Yeah.
All right. So I'm thoroughly convinced they introduced the Inquisitor's base in the show just so they didn't want Jedi Fallen Order to be the only one that
yeah.
You know.
I felt like I definitely do agree with the Inquisitors. I feel like it would have still been a pretty solid show without the Inquisitors. I feel like if they did I mean, I get the whole Jedi hunting theme, but I feel like if they just, I don't know. I really don't know what the story or what the idea of the show would have been about with what they gave. I mean, I'm sure there's countless things you could do. Like I said, the whole holocron thing I was talking about. But
yeah, I don't necessarily think, because I've heard this thrown around that like there's two different shows here. There's an Obi Wan Kenobi show dealing with his PTSD, and then there's this show about Reva who wants to get revenge on Vader. And some people are saying they could have done an Inquisitor show where it's about Reva as she wants to work her way to assassinate Vader, and then she fails, and that's the crux of the show. And it's like, wow. And then there's this Obi-Wan show that would have just been an Obi-Wan show. And I don't necessarily think either is a problem. I honestly, I feel like the Obi-Wan show could have worked doing that because, you're intertwining her in the story, whether it's indirect or not. The problem is how it's handled. And by the time you get to the point where it should have an emotional impact, it doesn't, and it feels very hollow. And then what they continue to do with her character makes absolutely no sense, right? So in episode 5, Reva gets stabbed by Vader, which apparently this isn't the first time she's gotten stabbed by Vader. She got stabbed by Vader as a kid.
So actually that was just apparently, so that part actually was just her
her envisioning it, like imagining it.
Yeah, because she just said that she hid in the bodies when he killed like his friends. Like she never mentioned that she got stabbed, but in that vision she was having like a PTS flashback. She didn't actually get stabbed. So I actually had to look into that because I was like, it didn't make any sense to me.
Right. And from a filmmaker perspective, that would be really interesting, like, cause that's what it would be. But to the same degree, it's like, there's no type of consistency going on. It's like, okay, she's gotten stabbed and then she somehow just is able to survive long enough to get off world and run through Tatooine to find Luke. No issues. Whereas Qui-Gon got stabbed, that mofo died immediately. And I know there is the line. There's the line. Revenge. There's the line the Grand Inquisitor said, revenge does wonders for blah, blah, blah. And Darth Maul, obviously,
Darth Maul's the blueprint, bro.
you clung to life and all that stuff. But it's like,
Darth Maul clung to life with no internal organs.
Straight up.
For how many years between?
It was a while.
Dude, it was like what? So Obi-Wan was a Padawan, and then he was a master in Clone Wars.
So there's bare minimum that's like 10 years.
And it was 10 years. He clung to life for 10 years with no internal organs.
Exactly.
Bro.
So it's just, but it's weird because. It's weird because then you see that and then she goes off to go assassinate Luke. For what reason, we do not know. Because in the context of the show, all she saw was this broken holocron, right? This broken like transponder, whatever. I said fucking holocron. Wow.
Holocron. Same shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's enough.
Yeah, right. So basically, and it's Jimmy Smith's Bail Organa, and he's just like muffled Luke Owen, and that's all she knows. Tatooine. Like what would she even gain from that other than I want to make Obi-Wan hurt? Your main goal was going after Vader, and then you failed, and then now your main goal is to go after Obi-Wan. Like, bro, what?
Yeah, that I will agree with. See, I thought she made the connection that was Anakin Skywalker's son. I thought that was what she did. Consider it
but still, that's like a reach.
And the only reason why I say that is just because how she found Obi-Wan or Leia, correction, how she discovered Bail and Obi-Wan were connected by looking up in the archive about them doing political stuff together during the Clone Wars. So that was like my assumption was like, because if you go back far, I mean, slaves were like common knowledge, like they were in the system. Wouldn't it be hard for her to figure out like, who owned what back then? So like Shmi Skywalker would be in the system and somehow over in God, what's the territory called? I can't think because Tatooine's not an imperial or a republic territory. It's like a hut space. Yeah, it's hut space. So that was my assumption. Again, I don't know. Like that's just my theory. Don't take what I say as the go-to.
Yeah,
but that was just my guess.
But I've noticed that a lot about this show. There's a lot of reaches. There's a lot of reaching. There's a lot of reaching. You just have to put 2 and 2 together and just pray for the best and hope,
and like as far as the actors coming back to do their roles again, even if they weren't like significant, I feel like that's just a consistency thing with Star Wars. I don't really know, like I wouldn't really say it would have to do with just because they're in it means like a big deal or a big role, because like look at Mon Mothma
in Rogue One.
It's the same one. Yeah, it's the same actor from Revenge of the Sith.
And
she was
that's
in it for how long? And Bail was in it too. Bail was in it too. Bail didn't even fucking talk.
No. Bail had more screen time. No. Mon Mothma, I think she wasn't even in the movie. She was in his deleted scene.
No, she was in it. She was in Rogue One.
No, not Rogue One. Revenge of the Sith.
She was in Revenge of the Sith. She was part of the Senate. She was in the Senate.
She had screen time?
Mm-hmm. It's not a lot. It's not a lot.
I thought, okay, but Bail Organa, he had lines. He had lines in that movie.
Yeah, he had lines, yeah.
And so it is.
Yeah, and so
so it is.
And so it is.
Oh my God. But no, I'm not saying that's a problem though.
Excuse me, sir. It's time for you to go home.
And so it is.
Child murder.
And so it is. Everything in life, it's Little Caesars is now $5.99, and so it is. So
that was him gunning up the prices.
And so it is, straight up. Oh man, I'm gonna find the screen grab at that. I'm gonna try to make that the next meme, straight up.
That's perfect. That's you could use that for so many things. You could use that for God, dude. There's really no cap on it. Yeah,
there isn't, bro. There isn't.
Well, it could be used in a good term. It could be used in a bad term. There's literally no like distinct narrative for it.
That's unlimited power right there, bro. I'm saying, that is the Force Unleashed, bro. Straight up.
Yeah,
it's true.
It is.
All right, but anyway, I'm not saying that's necessarily a problem, but for me, it's just everything just felt like it was in service to move the plot forward rather than being organic. So speaking about Bail Organa, bro, like here's the thing. With the amount of resource and pull that they have over there, they could have hired the most discreet bounty hunters to go get Leia back if they wanted to keep it hush hush, because that was the whole approach. But they didn't do that because the show's defense was we don't want to like raise suspicion on who this girl is. And I'm like, fam, come on now. There's people you could pay all this money, and that's like when I have to start turning off my brain to logical stuff, and the only reason he called Obi-Wan was like, I need a favor. I'm like, what? It's ain't like it's James Bond, only man that could ever do it type shit. This is an old hermit.
Bond, only man who can do it type shit.
Only man. This is a hermit who's been living on Tatooine backwaters, smelling like he came out of an anime convention. He's not that guy. Bro. He's not that guy, bro. He is not that guy.
Not that guy, Bao. You're not that guy.
You're not that guy. So yeah, like for me, and that just all encompasses everything around this show. Everything is in service of the plot rather than it feeling organic. And there's just a lot of dead air in the show where I'm like, you could have trimmed that. You could have cut that. Like Kumail Nanjiani's character, what purpose did he serve? Except to get them to the port on the other side, Yeah.
That's fair enough. Fair enough.
You know, and
It's fair enough.
it's like there's some weird shit in this, bro. There's some weird shit like that whole scene in episode 2 where Revo was like parkouring. I was thinking to myself, yo, she's about to go after them like an attack dog. And then it ends and she's like,
Yeah, that was some Jedi Fallen Order shit right there.
oh, bro, oh my God.
That was some Cal Kestis moving shit.
Cal Kestis wall running.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. Like, I don't like. I see what you're saying. I do see what you're saying, and that's another thing with Star Wars as a whole. It's very inconsistent, just altogether.
Yeah,
very inconsistent. I mean, Reva's character, like, I like her plot twist a lot. Like that, I think that was, I think that was like one of her highlights was the fact that she didn't give a fuck about the Jedi and she didn't give a fuck about the Sith. She was going on some like anime revenge, trying to kill someone who killed her friends. That's all she cared about. And I like that a lot about her character.
Mhm.
But again, like you were saying, she did do some like stupid shit. But then she go and do some smart shit, like planting like putting a restraining bolt on Leia's droid, an Imperial restraining bolt to be able to track him. Like the restraining bolt, I mean, they do to droids all the time, but because she put it on there, she was like, "Yo, Leia has it. We could track him." Like she go and do shit like that, but then go and do, God knows, fucking like what you were saying earlier.
It's so weird, bro, because it's
But
like
she also loses the points for me because she's against child murder, but she also was about to torture a child.
straight up. There's some
Give
weird. There's
him
some
that
weird,
Han Solo Empire Strikes Back shock therapy that Vader did.
dude. It's so weird. Like Leia wasn't even scared of Reva. She was scared of the fucking blades of chaos and all that shit coming up.
The blades of chaos.
Straight up blades of chaos. Straight out of God of War right there.
Oh God.
But no, it's just it's so strange because I'm just looking at the progression from episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like this one giant cat and mouse game from one place to the next. We can't stay here. We got to keep moving. And yes, I get that has happened in a lot of Star Wars stuff, especially the original trilogy.
Mandalorian season 1.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I said I like Kenobi more than Mandalorian season 1. That's what you just said was my exact reason why Mandalorian season 1 dropped lower on my tabloid.
Now, do you think that's also because Obi Wan Kenobi is shorter than Mandalorian season 1 by like, I don't know, 3 episodes? Two episodes that could be it. So you have less time where you're like, okay, come on now, like stay at some place, be stationary.
A little bit of that. I mean, it's weird because I do want to see, like, I will give it this.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not another series where they're using the production value of Tatooine, of Mos Espa again. I'll say that much. Like in the introduction of a casino planet that was like Nar Shaddaa, the closest we're ever gonna get to Nar Shaddaa. I mean, I can't say that because they're doing a bunch of shit with Star Wars. But the fact they did that whole like casino scumbag, gambling planet, awesome. I've always wanted to see Nar Shaddaa in live action. It's probably the closest we're ever going to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great. I think overall most of the episodes were I don't want to say they're all great because like one was like all right to me. Like the first episode was okay. Like obviously, like the first episode from our show, it's like a hit or miss.
Like an introduction.
It's like an introduction. Like it ain't like Mandalorian where like he shows up, pulls a guy through, and he gets cut
that was a great episode, bro.
And then, he goes to another planet, fights off a bunch of dudes. Taika Waititi shows up as a robot, starts gunning down people.
I love that episode, bro.
That was a phenomenal episode. Great ass episode. It's funny because Mandalorian has like the reverse Kenobi. I feel like Kenobi's story gets stronger at the end.
Yes.
Where Mandalorian started with a strong beginning and then it had a kind of like a weak like mid center, and then the last two was like the payoff. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt like Kenobi had like a weak start, great payoff, and then you had like 3 was a really good episode. I like 2 a lot, and then 4 is like most people's like most unfavorite episode, which
Yeah.
is kind of ironic because I didn't really care for 1 much, but I could see why they didn't like 4. But for me, I liked 4.
I
For
think
a
a lot of people
different-
liked.
for different reasons.
I think a lot
for
of people
different
liked
reasons.
episode 1 because it showed us a side of Star Wars we hadn't seen, which was like
That's true.
the more mundane side of Obi-Wan, and it showed how heavily beaten down this character was from
Yes,
what
that
happened
is
and
true.
how what
Yeah.
he was doing in his day-to-day life and how he was just like, will he or won't he help out somebody? So I think that's why people liked that. Versus episode 4, where, you know, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the show, and it's just this giant let's escape the fortress. And the only saving grace of that episode was really just the conversation with Leia and Obi-Wan towards the end.
And see, for me, that was the opposite on why I like number 4. For me, it was him getting back into using the Force again. Like from like the beginning scene of them, like he literally like can't even speak again. So the very beginning,
all
he
things
was-
considered, you're doing a pretty good job for the episode.
Oh yeah, thanks. At the very beginning, he was totally against helping out, doing any kind of shit. No, I gotta watch Luke. I'm not using the Force. Like he was about to let Owen just get sliced up in town. Like he was not gonna budge. You know, he wasn't gonna do anything. It was very much the Force is dead. We lost. It's GG, no rees. No handshakes.
No revives, none of that shit.
Yeah,
bro.
no revives. We out of here. Okay, and he, got guilted into going and getting Leia because he was like, "Well, you said you'd watch over the children." Which I mean, he did say that if you watch Revenge stuff, he did say you'd watch over the children. He just said that.
It
He just said that I'll
lines that
watch
were
over the
said.
boy. He just said that I'll go. You guys keep the girl, and I'll stay on Tatooine, watch over the boy. But he did say before that I'll watch over the children. So he did say that he had them receipts. So in that whole beginning aspect, he was really against everything. Even the previous episode, in episode 3, which is I think my second favorite episode. I want to say it's my first, but 6 took the cake for that.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
3 was one of my favorite episodes outside of the whole, just out of the whole show. 3, the man you saw in 3, old Obi-Wan would not have let innocents just die like that. Like Clone Wars Obi, who would not have like what Vader did to those people, the way he brutalized them.
Yo, can we just so can we talk about the fact that this man Darth Vader force snapped a kid's neck and that somehow got the approval of Disney? Like,
yeah,
bro, and that's the thing. At first, I had to run that scene back because I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just like a small.
Spoiled it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. So that was the funny thing. So literally, like, so I'll have to scroll back into our text convo. But I was texting him, and I assumed that Gabe had seen the episode because he said something like very vague. I don't know what it was. Like he could have said like "fucking Darth Vader, man." And I was thinking, oh, he probably saw the episode. So I was texting like, "Yo, Vader snapped the neck. He is unhinged." And then I looked on Twitter, and Gabe was like, "All right, I'm getting ready to watch this Kenobi episode." And I was like, wait a minute, what? And then I was like, no, don't look at the text chat. Don't look at the text chat. I went to freaking Twitter DMs. I said, whatever you do not look at the text chat.
He calls me.
I tried to call him. I said, do not look at your text messages. And
I was driving during that whole period of you like sending me all those messages. Like, I think I sent you that text. I left. Oh yeah, I was gonna go get food.
Oh
so
man.
I left. And I literally didn't even like check my phone until I got back home because I was like rushing. I was like, I'm gonna watch Kenobi.
Yo,
so
47 messages. 47 messages. Like, what the fuck? And I kept sending messages so whatever shows up in his notification tab would be the most recent one and not anything about the fucking spoilers. So yeah, that was funny. That was very funny. It was so good. But yeah, no, like just seeing Vader force snap a kid's neck, and it was a kid's neck because you go back, you hear that voice, he going through puberty. That is brutal. And it's so funny because I was like, out of all the episodes that didn't have that, because they started putting the content warnings before anything involving like younglings getting murdered. They didn't do it for that episode, which apparently is fair game. Like maybe he's alive. Maybe
he's alive. Dude, the brutality of that episode altogether, man, was I will say one thing, whether you didn't like the show or you did like the show, either way on both sides of the sword at the middle.
Both sides of the sword in the middle of the
double
sword.
blade sword. Yeah, of this double bladed sword at the middle. I will say this show did a phenomenal job at capturing Vader's brutality that we've never got to see in live action.
Yes.
In the comics and the games, it's shown, but in this show,
in the comics, that man a fucking menace. Oh my god.
Yeah, absolute menace. Like, and in this show, they straight up had no problem showing the powerhouse that Vader was at this point in time at all.
Like, I don't mind that. I don't mind that, bro, because we had never gotten that. Like when we watched Rogue One, and I was like, "Yo, that is amazing."
Oh yes,
that is amazing. It is so brutal, but that was like Vader as we are about to know him in A New Hope. But this is a Vader that's like post-murdering younglings by 10 years. Where exactly is he at? Well, evidently, force snapping kids' necks. And I was like, God damn, Vader. Whew.
That shit was brutal. And the funny part about that is the kid neck scene isn't even the part that sticks in my head the most.
Really?
Yeah. So when he first starts like murdering people, he comes out and then, he pulls out the first guy, kills that guy, and while he's pulling that guy out, he doesn't kill the guy. Pulls the guy out of the house first with the force, and the kid runs out to stop him. He snaps that kid's neck instantly. Then he goes and kills the other guy. But shortly after that scene, there's a part where he uses the force and drags a woman across the ground. That part sticks in my head rent free for some fucking reason. I don't know if it's just the sheer brutality of it or the sheer like the torture sequence.
I was about to say that you think it was the torture, because it's one thing if you kill somebody, it's over and done with. But if you continually cause them pain and make them suffer, because he's not trying to kill anybody. He's trying to get a rise out of Obi Wan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which didn't work out.
Straight up, bro. But it's they did a really good job with Vader in this show, especially as he fights Obi Wan in that episode. His goal is not to kill Obi Wan. His goal is to make Obi Wan suffer the way he did. And bro, the fight between them, as you see Obi Wan, he's obviously outclassed for this. Vader's just one-handing him like he was one-handing Luke in Empire. And then the end of the scene, like straight up, he's just like, I'm gonna make you suffer the way I did. He just picks up Obi Wan and drags him across the fire. I don't know how Obi Wan didn't end up with more damage. I know they threw his ass in a back to tank, but bro, that is brutal. Could you imagine? Yo, he said you gonna feel this.
Yeah, that was a degree of petty I never thought I'd see, but no, that was great. That whole episode, even the dialogue points, and I think that's probably like one of the reasons why I like the show the most, is that it could have just been a Vader and Kenobi show only. It could have been like Vader hunting him down instead of the Inquisitors, and it would have probably benefited a lot more from that. But like, I just liked how much that Anakin never let any of this go. How much he really dwelled on it all. And from the scene of him like knowing Kenobi's in town, trying to get him out, to him trying to meet him out in the open field of lightsaber, and he just runs away. And then it's just the fear in his face fighting him and seeing like, what Anakin has become, because as far as he know, in episode 2 he killed Anakin. At least that's what he presumed. He thought Anakin died
episode 3
on Mustafar, and it was 2.
You said okay, I thought we were talking about in the prequels. End of 2. Okay, got you.
No. End of.
I think we were talking about as far as like Anakin at end of episode 3. It's now because we have to refer to like episodes of the show versus episodes of the movies.
Now we gotta go. We gotta call them by their proper names now.
Straight up. So as far as he knew, Obi-Wan was dead, and he thought that Anakin was dead as well. Which that was a crazy reveal when he found out that Anakin was alive, because he was like, Tatooine is so disconnected from everything, and he thought that
you never really realized that. But like now that you think about it, even look at a New Hope. Yes, they were stormtroopers there, but they were there looking for the droids. They were sent there.
Yes.
They weren't like
Patrolling.
stationed there patrolling. Yes, and I realized that's a consistent theme they've kept up with Tatooine as a whole throughout all of it, which again I really appreciate when they do consistency in Star Wars.
Absolutely. So yeah, and speaking of, because I think the highlights of this show without question is anything involving Anakin and Obi-Wan. Everything from like the Force vision thing and how it switched to Anakin in the tank to their fight to everything afterwards is like the highlight, the saving grace of the show. And then we got another surprise. Honestly, it's one of my favorite scenes throughout the series. But ironically, some people are still complaining about it. I mean, I understand why, but at the same time, I wasn't focused on that. I was just more like, wow, I never thought I'd see it again. We got a flashback, finally a flashback. We thought we'd get this when he was in the back of the tank. We didn't. We got it later. A flashback to what I assume is pre-Attack of the Clones, because Anakin still has his hand. Pre-Attack of the Clones, or maybe it takes place in between for all we know. I don't know.
True.
Like right before.
The timeline's fucking weird.
Yep. But it was Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they were sparring, and it was so great because it was just Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen on screen and their dialogue, and it was so surreal that it was those two on screen, prequel era, without the really cringy dialogue. And bro, it brought me all the way back home.
I remember he texted me saying, you're like, Hayden with competent dialogue. You're like, what is this?
Dude, I was in love. I still go back and I rewatch that scene all the time. And I understand a lot of people wish that they had actually de-aged Hayden so he looks like a 20-year-old versus, a 40-year-old Hayden Christensen. I would be okay with it looking like that if they had established, it's like you said with Reva, how she had that vision and it played to like her, like what was happening currently. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like a filmmaking stylistic choice where you're not getting stabbed as a child, you're getting stabbed right now. Like you guys have seen that before in other shows and movies. I'd be okay if that was what they were going for here. Like, let's say, for example, they were fighting and then the flashback was them fighting, but it was how they are now, So, I mean, I loved everything. I loved seeing Hayden again, like so friggin' much. Hayden needed this, I think, more than anybody, just because of everyone remembers how the prequels in that era and everything since. The prequels honestly didn't start to see some shine until, honest to God, in the last like 3-4 years. Like, yeah,
by far, they weren't even like accepted until within the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I mean for obvious reasons, but I think now everyone's come to the point where it's just like, okay, yeah, they got their issues, but as a Star Wars fan, you love them because of what they did. And it was fantastic. And I think the best part about this whole situation is how you see Vader's arc as a character, because the Vader we see in this show is not the Vader that we see in Star Wars A New Hope.
No, and I actually have a lot of theories and suggestions on that.
Right. So I'll let you lead this, but the one thing I want to say is I really liked how his arc was, because he starts off, he's still Anakin Skywalker. He hasn't made that transition to Vader yet.
Conflicted.
Yeah.
He's very conflicted still.
And that's something the show does really well, and we'll talk about this, like the best part, the final episode, what they do in that fight. But like, he's not the Vader you see in Empire Strikes Back, who's sitting at the table in Cloud City, and everyone walks in the room, they're like, what the fuck? And Vader's just like, we'd be honored if you would join us. He's not that cold, menacing Vader yet. And I love that because it still shows that he's got that unbridled rage and that energy. And he's like obviously powerful, but it's just, he's not at that level yet where he can just like calmly look at stuff. And when you see him in episode 5 and what he's doing, like he's still unhinged. And I loved how they they brought him by the end of the series to the point where he has to let all that stuff go if he wants to transcend into the Vader that we know him as. But what were you going to speak on?
I was going to kind of like what you were basically saying. I don't consider him Darth Vader yet at this point. He's very much Anakin Skywalker. He's very conflicted. He's still holding on to the past. Obi-Wan is a sign of the light to him. Obi-Wan, and that seems to be a theme they do in a lot, is they can't seem to let go of the past and let go of who they once were unless they're able to scrub everything clean.
Mhm.
And Obi-Wan is a definition and a symbol of the light and is a symbol of who Anakin Skywalker used to be.
Mhm.
And I think with Obi-Wan being around, that is why he's so conflicted and is not the Sith he wants to be yet. And obviously over the years he seems to transcend because he doesn't actually get the boot on Obi-Wan until New Hope, but it's those prime years, those because that seems to be a concept with Sith a lot, is they seem to focus on one point of rage that drives why they are the way they are in most categories. With Darth Maul wanting Kenobi, that was what pushed him for so long. Saint Anakin wanted Obi-Wan so bad, and so with that being said, it almost was like it was just a fix him up Anakin kind of still fighting. Like he's like you said, he's not that menace yet, but he's not, who we saw in Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones, but he is very much that remnant of that Jedi who he was and is still trying to prove himself after all this time. He's still trying to validate himself as a warrior and as as a Sith. So I really like that it was like the Anakin we saw in Revenge of the Sith, but instead of being held back by not doing dark tendencies, he was able to act in those dark tendencies naturally. And I think that's what I liked a lot about this show, was that he knew he shouldn't be doing the things he was doing in the prequels, like murdering, committing genocide on the Tusken Raiders, killing the men, the women, the children. We all know the line, the shtick.
Mhm.
He knew he shouldn't be doing that, and that haunted him. He shouldn't be doing things, but with his transition from Revenge towards the midpoint of Revenge of the Sith, I would say it's a little past the midpoint because the rest of the movie is kind of like wraps up really quickly if you think about it within the last like half hour to 40 minutes. But that that transition of right and wrong is withers, like basically disappears at that point, and he's able to act in his own his, like I said, his own dark tendencies without feeling any recourse like he had previously. So given we only had such small screen time with that Anakin outside of the youngling event, and then him yeah, it's funny because it's one of my favorite scenes. I know it shouldn't be, but the part where he sends Anakin to the Mustafar system onto to the meeting, and Palpatine tells him he's sending the rest of the resistance and the Techno
Oh, to
Union
wipe out the
into
Trade Federation
yeah,
guys.
and he's there to tell him it's over. And I know I shouldn't, but like that scene, the visual storytelling and the music in that scene is so good because it's Obi-Wan going through the temple, seeing all the dead younglings, and he's like, "Who could have done this?" And then it goes to Mustafar playing the music, and it's just
Yo.
him murdering all these like politicians.
Straight
It's
up,
like-
that's one of the best. I was actually looking forward to that scene ever since Phantom Menace because those guys were so fucking annoying, and now we get to watch their deaths. It's beautiful.
but those tendencies, like it is a beautiful moment, yes. But those tendencies we never really got to live on. So in Kenobi, what I really liked is it was just full blown all of that. It wasn't no have or he was that guy now. So from killing people in the village to him pulling a ship down and just ripping it apart with the Force, just like all of that is just stuff I really really looked forward into seeing Vader do. But um it's very much a remnant of Anakin. He does not. He is because I feel like that's what they were trying to show us, but during those flashback sequences in episode 5, it was like he was learning from Obi-Wan from the past. Like
Mhm.
one of the parts was him teaching him patience.
Yes.
Which is like a plot line that seems to exist throughout Vader's whole character up until A New Hope, because eventually he has to give up on looking for Obi-Wan at one point, right? Like I don't think they'd ever meet again after that, after episode 6, right? I mean, I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
learning patience and learning, all these different, tools that he did eventually learn those ways, but he hasn't fully accepted them. And that's like one of the things I really liked. Like he has that patience, but to a degree. Like the beginning of episode 6, straight up, y'all, they could have ended the whole rebellion right there in that scene. When they were chasing the ship, you got Leia, you got the origins of you got the beginning network of the freedom fighters becoming
straight up.
the rebel. They could have ended New Hope Rogue
Right
One
there,
right
bro.
there.
Directed by Deborah Chow. That'll have an end 5 minutes in.
Directed by Deborah Chow. But again, and this is what Palpatine told him earlier, was that his feelings were conflicted, that he had too much of his own feelings, which is an ironic thing to say for the Sith, because that's what the Sith live off. But when you got Palpatine telling you that your feelings are conflicted, that you're too much into this, that's how you know he has not grown as Vader yet. And that's what I really loved about the show, about his character, is that all sense of urgency and everything who he's trained to become goes out the window when it comes to Obi-Wan. And that was an ongoing theme with Anakin and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and even in the Clone Wars TV series, is that he knew his rights and his wrongs. He was training, he was trying to learn better for it, but situations would just make him boil over, and he would just jump ship on everything that he was trying to trans again. Like in Attack of the Clones, like him jumping off of the speeder when they were doing that chase through Coruscant. Like all those impulses and things that, like, he's supposed to be learning and understanding, go out the window over certain situations.
Right.
And that's what I really liked about the show, was that yes, he's stronger with the dark side. Yes, he can't fight like he used to be. He's obviously he's all robotic limbs. I mean, we saw Bob in the tank in episode 3. But it's been 10 years, but he hasn't moved forward as far as you would think. And that's what I really, really liked. And that confliction of Anakin Skywalker is one of my favorite like plot lines in the show. I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me, Chris, or if you see, I don't know if you see it as a different way, but that's like the way I view it, is that it's essentially it's still Anakin up until X point.
Oh no, absolutely, bro. I 110% agree with you, bro. No, seriously, that's the best part about it, because including Vader in the show, obviously people would think like, okay, you got to have something really meaty if you're going to include Darth Vader and Hayden Christensen back in this show. It's got to be more than that. And I think what they showed it in ways that I think might go over a lot of people's heads if they don't really understand the character of Anakin. But I think what the show did was it paid a lot of tribute to the stage of the life that he is in right now. And if you see it, it starts in episode 3, in my opinion, when Obi-Wan asks him, "What have you become?" He says, "I am what you made me." And then if you contrast that line of dialogue to the end of episode 6, where he goes from being that Anakin who's still very bratty and stubborn to, by the end of that episode, he's like, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." Right? That was him coming to terms and accepting who he is right now. And that, you know how it is, how sometimes in life you get put in these scenarios that fundamentally change you. Even though some people would think like, okay, you would think that Anakin, after killing younglings and after, getting beaten by Obi-Wan, that's how he becomes Vader, yada, yada,
Right.
yada. But it wasn't until this moment right here where he finally gets detached from it, because Obi-Wan chose to detach himself from this. Like, my friend is truly dead. My friend is truly dead, and he walked away, and he was just like, Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan. That was the second time that Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yep, exactly. The second time Obi-Wan Kenobi had walked away from him, and then with Palpatine basically saying, like, you sure you're up to this, dude? Like, I think you might be lacking. If anything, I felt that was extra pressure, because remember the rule of two.
That's
the
true.
rule of two, master and an apprentice. When you compound that with how every single apprentice has at some point murdered his master because of whatever reason, and you apply that to Anakin, if anything, that is probably more incentive for Anakin to prove, like, no, I am this guy, And it's so funny how literally a couple decades later, master apprentice ends up coming true, and he ends up killing Palpatine, and then he ends that cycle because he dies too. But yeah, no, I really loved what they did with the Vader character, and we have someone in the comments section, Amazing CJB, wondering, do you guys think that this is the point where he slowly, truly accepts who he is as Vader without any type of attachment? Because in Rebels, very, very similar situation, and the final episode was an homage to it. In Star Wars Rebels, when Ahsoka encountered Darth Vader and she sliced part of his mask off and he revealed his face, and she was like, Anakin. Some people questioning, well, was he Anakin there or was he Vader? In my personal opinion, I think he was full on Vader at that point, because there wasn't any time. Well, again, obviously it's different, because like we brought up before, there's just some kind of leaps you have to accept when it comes to the time in which they made the media versus when new supplemental material comes out. Now, were they thinking back when they did that Rebels episode that in a few years later we're going to have a similar scenario with Obi-Wan? No, they were probably just thinking about making this an homage to both of them. But I think by that point, he was full on Vader. And there wasn't any of this back and forth, like, not appealing to emotion, but basically the conversation that him and Obi-Wan have, him and Ahsoka didn't have that type of shit. He was very much so, no. They
didn't even talk. The only part, though, I think the only time they talked was after she cut his mask and he spoke, and she actually got to see his face and heard his voice and realized that, okay, so Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, and she thought it was just a rumor. And then her saying, I'm not gonna leave you, and then his response after that was, then you will die. That's was his response after, and that was it. And which she in fact did die.
Yo,
at what point?
So that, and I think that it plays very poetically, like, because both of them, they cut off a certain part of Vader's mask, and then it wasn't until Luke Skywalker who was able to remove the mask and reveal Anakin Skywalker again.
Yeah.
I thought that was very beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I thought of the slice mask part because we were talking about that yesterday, but I never thought about it. Ended up being Luke was the one who took the mask off.
And you want something else that's, because this show is really good at like the small little attention to details for things that it might just be us speculating as fans, but if you noticed, because Vader took off Obi-Wan took off a big chunk of Vader's mask. Like, he made that man hurt. He almost damn near destroyed the suit. And when he sliced off the mask and you see Anakin cradling like his head, there is something on, like, if you're looking at it, like if we're staring at him, it's on his right cranium, but for him it's his left cranium. There is a gash there, I think, from the incision of the lightsaber. And I'm not saying this is legit, but if you look at the end of Return of the Jedi, when Luke removes the mask, there is a gash there at the exact part.
Shit.
And I'm just saying, like, yeah, you could just say that they're, just putting in these little Easter eggs, but I would not be surprised if what they did with this show was to prove that, okay, that was from his fight with Anakin. That head scar was from the fight with fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's like a nice little touch, man.
I didn't even come close to, dude. I didn't even think about it. I mean, I did see it, but I didn't even, bro.
It took me like a couple rewatches. It took me like 3-4 rewatches before I noticed that. And also, one thing I loved about that fight was how it played. And this is what really kills me about the show, because the parts with Obi-Wan and Anakin are so fucking good, and you can actually see a vision there. You can see what they're doing.
So just there's so much good writing in those scenes. Like I guess maybe that is like the double-edged sword in this, is that like at least with their scenes, it's not just there to be there, you know, like where you're trying to sell people on nostalgia and stuff like that, and it just doesn't work out. It's just not good. But like they actually make the scenes good for those two. Like those scenes are like so damn good. They just like they get you emotional, man. Honestly.
Absolutely, bro. And that's the oh god, we got some spam going on in the chat right now.
Let's go.
Let's go ahead.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's wild. That's how you know you make it, when you have when you got spam in the chat. There you go.
Big boy now.
Exactly. I'll just put that user in timeout. But anyways, going back to what we were saying, and I just loved how the scene and the way it was shot, how it goes from when they're having the discussion, you know, how it plays with the reflections of the lightsaber and the illumination of the light, and how when Anakin is talking about certain things, it's blue, and that shows that he's more Anakin. And then when he finally accepts, like, you know, Darth Vader killed it, it's back on red, and his eyes, they turn the Sith color again. And it's just like, bro, that's some damn good filmmaking right there.
The detail and all that, dude. It's I don't know, man. Like that's why like I have a hard time in this show saying like, oh, it's just like a terrible show, like or even saying like it's an okay show. I think it's above average. I think it's a good show. I definitely think it's worth a watch. Like Book of Boba Fett, like I like it, but I tell most people it's only really worth a watch for whatever storyline they're going to be telling in the future. Like I didn't really rewatch any Book of Boba Fett episodes. Like
I rewatched obviously the one where Luke showed up. That was like the only one I watched. That was it.
Like that's true. Yeah, I forgot that was a pretty good episode. But I mean, outside of that, I didn't really watch it. I even tell people like I'm like, it's like Mandalorian season 2.5. I'm like, it's a filler season for whatever it's coming up, which is weird for me to really say, especially being a big Boba Fett fan.
You know what I think really would have remedied a lot of these problems that people had with Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan? If they made like just this random one-off season where it's just like an assortment of a bunch of things happening, maybe not enough content to be a full-on season, but enough content to be bundled together as like, let's say 9 episodes where you have 3 episodes focused on Boba Fett doing whatever the fuck he's doing. Then you have like maybe 2 episodes doing more Mando stuff. And then you could have like 3 episodes dedicated to like Reva and Inquisitors, kind of like anthology stories, but like wrapped up under Star Wars. And some of them might go somewhere, some of them might not, but they're like telling stories that are relevant enough, but maybe not relevant enough to have a whole series or something. And I think that really would have remedied a lot of the problems people are having with these shows that just feel like, in my case, there's a lot of dead air. Like, you didn't need to do this, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean that part I will say I do agree fully on. I like a lot of the time I'll say the reason why I don't feel like it's dead air is because I'm so into this franchise. I'm so into this universe. I'm just wanting to absorb every piece of information, every new dialogue, every new, you know, imagery that's coming at me. I'm just trying to absorb it, and I'm just trying to, you know, get the best, you know, sight of it I can while I can. So that's why I said in some ways it's a little bit of a bias on me, but I also won't disagree on some of the stuff that, you know, isn't great or some people think it isn't bad, and some of the stuff that people do think is bad, I sometimes don't think it's bad, but there is stuff I could definitely agree on why, you know, see why they didn't like it, and I won't say it, you know, wasn't the best, you know, best piece at all. But another thing that I really did like a lot with this last episode as well was so that whole dialogue piece, you know, with him saying, you know, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. That part to me resonated really, really hard mainly because that line has a lot. It puts a whole new twist on A New Hope from the
Mm,
scene when he meets or after he meets Luke from from the Tuscans, and he brings him in and he starts talking about, his father and stuff. And Luke asks, I wish I would know my father. And he goes, and he asks, what happened to him. And he tells him that a young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine, he betrayed and murdered your father.
mm-hmm.
That line resonates
Yep.
so much harder after watching that 6th episode with what Anakin said, because Obi-Wan essentially at this point is literally quoting what his dad told
Yeah.
him,
They brought it
what
full
he
circle.
said, full circle. And I really, really like that a lot. I really, really, really like that. That shit hit hard. And the other part as well was Leia's excitement that Ben is there in A New Hope when they're in the jail cell. When Luke shows up and tells them, I'm here to rescue, I'm with Obi-Wan. And she goes, Ben, you're here with Ben? And she's all excited. That shit hits so much harder, especially because the pouch that Leia has in A New Hope is the same one that she has that was given to her by Obi-Wan in the TV series from
That was from the one who sacrificed herself.
yeah, that's the same pouch you see when Leia first enters her first scene in New Hope, and throughout all New Hope, it's the same exact pouch.
Yeah. Like this show did a very good job at doing a lot of those callbacks and making them hit really hard without it feeling really forced. Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there who didn't know about that pouch, who are just like, oh, it's just a pouch that she wears.
Yeah,
But they did a lot of good things in that respect. You know, the like Obi-Wan being the one to give Luke the ship. There's just a lot of things that you could like point to individual things.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, like so
That's the first scene you see him too. That's funny. The first scene you see him playing around, he's playing around that damn ship.
Yep. And like there's an argument to be made that it did restore Obi-Wan's faith after Revenge of the Sith and him being able to trust people, even someone even somebody like Han Solo, who I don't think the Obi-Wan now would ever fucking trust Han Solo.
No, especially not after he met with the fake Jedi in
Yeah.
second episode.
Absolutely. So, and the best thing I can say about the Obi-Wan character and what it did is it got him to a point where, and this is a very beautiful place in life to be, he just got to accept whatever happens. You can't try to force something, because he spent his entire life living this religion and forcing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Have to do this. And then when it came to Luke, he was just like, you know what? I used to think when the time comes, the boy must be trained, because that was the old code. Now the future will figure itself out. And I think that's a really beautiful point of view, because he spent so much of his life living by this code. Exactly. Yeah. And living by a code, and then seeing what happens to somebody like Anakin, who was abused by the code, and then he has no footing in his life, and now he's abused by another code entirely. So it was nice to see him get to that point. And the last thing we're gonna end off with before we wrap this up, cameos.
Yeah.
So there was one cameo that I think a lot of us expected to happen. Obviously, it was the biggest one that we would see, but there was another cameo that I think it's not that it was like expected. We knew it was coming, but we expected it within the time frame. But it was crazy, because when it showed up on screen, I was like, oh shit. And that was Ian McDiarmid returning as Emperor Palpatine. That's the thing, bro. I don't know why I didn't think Palpatine could ever show up in a show about Darth Vader, or at least featuring Darth Vader. But when I saw it, I got so fucking giddy, man. I was like, it's fucking Palpatine. Like Ian, he loves that fucking character, bro. So any opportunity for him to play it,
he really does, dude. It was great, even just to hear the Lord Vader again. I'm like, oh yes. I was like, yes.
Dude, it was so good to see him again. And then the biggest cameo, obviously. The biggest one.
The one that made me I fucking ugly cried.
Dude, straight up. That was so right after Obi-Wan delivers his famous line that it was crazy, because like We waited all season for him to say this line. And by the time the season ended, I was like, all right, he's not going to say it. But then he goes up to Luke, and I'm just so entranced with him and Luke seeing each other for the first time. And then he says it. I was like, oh, shit, he said the line.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it straight up, bro. Straight up.
And that's the first line Alec Guinness said to him in New Hope.
First line Al Guinness said, and it's just so... Bro, like if they had ended the show right there, I would have been just fine because it was just such a like so beautiful, and the way oh man, one thing I liked about this is it kind of brought us back to where Star Wars is going to be, because you know it had the John Williams Force theme, it had the Leia theme, the Imperial March, and
speaking of themes, I forgot this. The beginning scene when the Star Destroyer is chasing the ship and shooting, it's playing the chase music from Empire Strikes Back that they play when the Star Destroyer was chasing the Millennium Falcon through the asteroid field.
Oh damn, bro. Okay, so this was all about making sure, like, okay, we're coming back. We haven't forgotten Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the final cameo.
Yes, the ugly cry.
The ugly cry for Gabe over here. The return of one Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson pulling the Andrew Garfield, going back on his word, because Liam Neeson was like, I don't want to do TV. I like big screen. It's more, prestigious, blah, blah, blah. And then who do we see as a Force ghost? Fucking Qui-Gon Jinn telling fucking Obi-Wan, took you long enough. Well, it's going to be a long journey. Gabe, what were your emotions in that scene?
Dude, I just like I accepted the fact that we probably weren't going to see Qui-Gon. I was like, you know what, maybe it'll just be a voice. Probably. I was like, probably won't go see him. It's like, I don't know when he reached his own heightened sense to be able to connect to the Force on that level, to see a Force ghost and to interact with one. And probably him disconnecting himself from the Force for so long probably didn't help with that. And so I just assume like it's just not gonna happen. It's just it. But dude, when I started seeing the mirage forming and then I saw the hair and I was like, no. I was like, are we really doing this? I was like, we haven't seen Qui-Gon since 1999. I'm like, dude, I was like, you can't be fucking doing this. And then he turns around, and it's Liam fucking Neeson saying, oh, it took you long enough. And then
sassier than a mofo, bro.
Dude, it's good old sassy fucking Qui-Gon too, bro. Like exactly, like it was almost like no time fucking left,
dude. Like straight up, and that's the crazy thing, because Liam Neeson, I think he's in his early 70s now.
He just turned 70.
Wow.
He really just turned 70. And it's funny because I ugly cried with Luke and I ugly cried with fucking Qui-Gon. And I remember when you left me the voice message crying at the ending of season 2 of Mandalorian, I was like, bro, I thought it was the worst shit I was about to see.
Yo, so for context, for those who don't know, when Mandalorian season 2 ended, obviously everyone was so taken aback that Luke Skywalker come back. Like, bro, I think that was the most emotional I've ever got watching Star Wars, because I was like, it's fucking Luke Skywalker, and no one expected it, and the music and everything. I was like in my feels, and I was in the bathroom, I think, when I sang. No, was I in the bathroom? I don't know, but either way, I sent him that message. I was like, bro, that finale was so fucking beautiful. Oh, I cried. And then Gabe was thinking, oh no, is Grogu gonna die? Like, what is this finale, man?
That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, yo, fuck this show.
Yo, straight up.
And there was a scene that almost made it seem like it was about to happen too, and I was like, yo, fuck this show.
Dude, straight up. And it was so funny because Gabe's responses were so like, okay, all right, well, I'm looking forward to the episode. And I was like, how does he not go like, what? I was in my emotions. So I assume that's how he felt when he saw Qui-Gon. Man.
100%, bro. That is exactly how I felt. It was just so good to see. Like, I loved as a kid, I loved Qui-Gon. Like, I thought he was just like the coolest character. I remember being so upset of him dying, and still to this day, if I rewatch Phantom Menace, I still get upset at his death every time. I'm just like, bro, I'm like, he was such a fucking cool guy. Like, Qui-Gon was just such a cool Jedi, and his character type just isn't on the spectrum of any of the other Jedi that they have out there. They all are so unique. Some of them seem like they're really similar to each other. Like they act that same mannerism, same. But like you have like these Jedi who are just unique. You know, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke. They all just have there's these own defined mannerisms. And Qui-Gon just had this mannerism that I just loved. And when he got gatted at the end of episode 1, I was upset and still upset every time I see it. But just to see him come back again and just to talk, oh man, bro, it was just like just memories, bro. Just memories.
Dude, it's memories from so many different eras because you're getting emotional thinking about what's about to happen in A New Hope, and then boom, it just takes you right back to the prequels, seeing Qui-Gon. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that about wraps up our discussion, our spoiler-filled discussion talking about Star Wars Obi Wan Kenobi. Now, like, whatever thoughts and feelings you have about the show, I think for the most part, everyone will be in agreement that like the best aspects of the show definitely come down to Anakin Skywalker and Obi Wan Kenobi, their relationship and what it did.
Agreed.
And honestly, I feel like even though I wasn't personally the biggest fan of the show, I felt that it did squander a lot of the potential, especially for all the other things. That piece is a really strong piece, and it makes me excited to go forward and watch older Star Wars content with different eyes, which is weird because Star Wars is like the only franchise that can really do that because it's been around for 50 years, dude.
Yeah, like I'm really itching to rewatch New Hope and Empire Strikes Back again. Honestly, just the original trilogy, just to see, Obi-Wan's interactions, like the way the way he speaks and his dialogue choice and his avoidance of using certain terminologies, just to see the man that like from this last event, because and that's another thing I will say as well that almost got me was the Obi-Wan crying, telling Anakin he's so sorry.
Oh,
like that shit.
dude.
That shit hit hard.
Ewan, fuck it. He came back, man. He came back. Give that man his awards, bro.
Give that man his awards.
Give that man all the Emmys and anything you could think of, bro, because he was in there. And Hayden too, man. Like I don't know if this is legit. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. But some people are saying that Hayden shed a tear. He said he shed a tear during that encounter. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because that's some heavy stuff. But
Obi-Wan,
straight up, man.
Obi-Wan.
So we'll see what happens in the future. There are rumors and rumblings that we might get a season 2 of Kenobi, which I mean, honestly, I don't know like what else they could really tell outside of just like random small missions here and there, but nothing is going to be on the scale of like Darth Vader or whatever.
No.
It's one of those things that I wish that this show had been a little bit longer so they could develop the Reva character. They could flesh that out a bit more. Like maybe make this a 12-episode series, and then like all the problems that I think all of us had would have probably gone away. Because the problem I have with a lot of Disney Plus shows is that especially the 6-episode ones, they start getting good towards the end and then they rush to the finish line. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I want to breathe. I want to breathe in these moments right here. And in the case of Kenobi, these moments work out well because we already know the characters. In the case of some of these other shows like Moon Knight, in the case of Moon Knight, it's like, well, we don't really know this guy like that. You're giving us interesting stuff, and then boom, the show is over. So we'll see what happens going forward. But if anything, I think the important thing what Star Wars should do going forward with these shows is that I think we're getting to the point where legacy characters, we're seeing how far they have to stretch it in order to make it, commercially viable. I think it's now time that we start moving in different directions.
Are you excited for Andor?
I'm excited for Andor because we don't really know anything about that era, and it's characters that we don't know anything about. So it's kind of like Mandalorian in that respect, where it's like we know Cassian.
I'm more excited for the fact what the show is based off of just from a line of dialogue.
What was that line of dialogue?
The line of dialogue that Cassian tells Jin in Rogue One, how he's been in this fight since he was a kid, how that he's done terrible things, and that that he can't even explain or express
Okay.
the things he's done to make the rebellion where it's at.
Yeah.
So which kind of makes me kind of hint at like this is he's probably did some really fucked up shit. That's my guess.
It's gonna be some messy stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely cross that bridge when we get to
Give
it.
us live action Cal already. Boy, we might
Never
be,
know.
might be that big leak is all I'm saying is I'm not hoping yet. I'm a big Cal fanboy, but bro, like
We'll see.
it would be really easy to do. That's all I gotta say. It'd be
Anything-
really fucking easy to do.
Anything is possible, and we will definitely be sweaty as hell if we see Cal in live action. But that wraps up tonight's episode of the Sweaty Cast, you guys. We went a little longer, but it's all in good fun because we were talking about Kenobi, and there was a lot of good stuff there. I want to thank everybody who showed up to the stream, whether you are watching it live or whether you're watching it on the playback. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you could do us a favor, hit that like button. It helps out the channel tremendously. And the timestamps will be up within like the next couple hours, so you can scrub around to see what you want to talk about. Also, let us know what do you think about this format that we did. Obviously, for this episode, we spent the majority of it talking about Kenobi because that was the show. But what I'm thinking what we do is that we have our segments where we talk about the news. We get those out of the way first. And then if there's like a particular topic that you guys want us to talk about, whether it's like, let's say, the week after a Marvel movie comes out, Gabe and I can speak our piece on it. Because, you know, there's never a shortage of shit to talk about in the nerd world, you know. Videos, like video games and stuff, we can probably do that. So it'll be like a hybrid of talking about news stories, and then whatever big thing came out that week, we can speak our piece on. But yeah, that'll come further down the road. Gabe, where can all these lovely people find you and stalk your sweaty, potentially part of the blood self?
Part of the blood cell, this guy. You can find me on Shut Up Gabe at Twitter with the 2 E's. So twitter.com/shutupgabe. And then on my profile, I have a direct me link that basically gives you a nice little bookmark to everywhere you could follow me, games you can add me on, systems, you fucking name it. It's my whole entire lineage of myself, social security, you name it, blood type, you got it.
Everything, his favorite type of foot fetish, all that stuff is there in the link.
Yes, sir. Oh, the foot.
Yeah, you just got that. Wow, I'm surprised it took you that long, bro.
Bro, that was some interesting shit. I was not expecting Rev to come to like it.
We learned a lot about our friend Solid Rev, but
we learned a lot. The man likes feet. Let him be.
And this is why y'all gotta be following us on Twitter. And you guys know where to follow me at NeoGameSpark on Twitter. Down below, exactly. Down below in the video description, we'll have all of my social media outlets, our Discord community as well. And yeah, we will be back next Thursday to hang out with all of y'all sweaty people. It's just a whole bunch of glorious, sweaty. I don't know. We got to come up with a name for like our community. Is it the Sweaty Nation? Is it the
Sweaty Nation?
No, there was like something marketable, like sweaty something.
Oh.
I don't know, like the sweat glands.
The sweat glands.
Yeah, like, what a fellow sweat glands. Like, I don't know. We gotta think of something. Actually,
brainstorming.
Exactly. So that'll be a challenge for everybody listening. Perfect name for our little sweaty community. What is it? Either way, for me to you for now, signing off from the Sweaty Cast for Shut Up Gabe. My name is NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace out, y'all. Stay sweaty.
Peace. Oh, it is out. Oh, the new Boys episode. I thought Boys comes out on Fridays, but Hero. Yeah, it says Hero Gasm's out. Well, you know.